special project. All partners from the BIOSWITCH project have been actively working for the last 2 years to help bring Europe to the forefront of the bio-based economy by encouraging and supporting brand owners from different sectors to switch to bio-based approaches. And in today's event, we wanted you to have like the big picture of our work, of everything that we've been doing and creating in the past two years. So you can also have a look at the different tools that we have available for you. I have a couple of remarks here before talking about the agenda of today. Please know that this session is being recorded, and we will later share the recording of this session on social media and on the project website. We'll also share with you in a follow-up email. Please, if you have any questions, use the Q&A function of Zoom, or just use the chat function itself. Please keep in mind that this is an interactive session, so we expect you to participate. And please keep your cameras and microphones off unless you are presenting. So let's have a look at the agenda. We're in the first part, in the welcome and introduction. I'm Hazel Ollanes from Sustainable Innovations. I'm the communications manager also of the project, and I will be moderating this first part of the event. After this, our project coordinator, Anna Lunka from Tech Innovation, will provide you with an overview of the project and all the work that we've been developing. Then we will have 3 different sessions. The first one will be focused on how brand owners and consumers help to shape this bio-based transition in Europe. There are key elements, and this will be provided by Emily March from Munster Technological University. Then we will go to the second session, focus on the tools that we have created for supporting brand owners in their shift from fossil-based to bio-based approaches. In this opportunity, the speakers will be John Boss from the Biomass Technology Group and also Carmen Ronchel from the Technological Corporation of Andalusia. And then our third session will be about how do we build and strengthen this bio-based value chain, and this session will be led by Thorkild Kvist from Food and Bio Cluster Denmark and Emma Sidwick from Flanders Food. After all this session, of course, in each one of them, you will have the opportunity to make any questions you may have, but we will have a final Q&A session and the kind of a wrap up for this first part of the event before we go to the lunch break and then to the Train the Trainer workshop. As you may know, the second part of the event, we will review our training program, and this will be made by Marta Macias from the Technological Corporation of Andalusia. She will talk about the different materials that we have included on our website and that you can access them. I will be also talking about the self-assessment tool and how you can identify your level and the kind of materials that you can access based on that specific level. Then we will have the BIOSWITCH Sustainability Assessment Tool slot with a presentation from Tina from VTT. And lastly, we will also have again a look at the BIOSWITCH Build Me the value chain service, and this will be led again by Marta Macias from Technological Corporation of Andalusia. And after all, we will have a Q&A and wrap-up session. As I told you, this is an interactive event, so if you have any questions, don't hesitate to let us know throughout the chat. So I won't take more time, and Anna, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much, Hazel. Let me just start by sharing my screen. I guess you should now see the presentation. So a very warm welcome also from my behalf. I'm the coordinator of our project, a dear project that we've been working very hard for the past 2 years, and we're now finally coming to an end soon. And we're really happy to share the great results that we've gotten during the project today with you guys and have this interactive session like Hazel mentioned. But just to kind of bring you on board with the BIOSWITCH project, our aim has been really to bring Europe to the forefront of the bio-based economy by encouraging and supporting brand owners. The brand owners have been supported to switch to bio-based approaches to replace fossil-based solutions. We started in 2020 in June, and like I said, we're coming to an end by this month, so May 2020. We've been running for 2 years, and our total budget has been a little bit under 1 million. And we have received the funding from the Circular Bio-Based Europe Joint Undertaking under the European Union Horizon 2020 Research and Innovation Program. We've had 8 partners in the project throughout Europe, and we've been working extremely hard on the project. Maybe to highlight on the key impacts that we've been hunting. So very, very concrete, important part has been to raise the brand owners' interest in switching to bio-based alternatives. Then the next step has been to enhance the brand owners' involvement and the commitment to the bio-based industry. And finally, we've been looking at increasing the marketability of these bio-based alternatives by fostering consumer awareness of the added value products, the bio-based products, when comparing to the fossil-based counterparts. So these have been driving all of our activities, research activities throughout the project. The challenges that we've been really looking out to solve with the BioSwitch toolbox is to respond appropriately to the kind of perceptions, potential risks of switching to bio-based that the brand owners may have. Also to identify advantages, incentives, motivations, and best practices that may support and drive the brand owners to switch to a bio-based solution. And also kind of have this framework that is able to incentivize and motivate the brand and drive the brand owners to switch to bio-based. So how we have approached these challenges and what is our solution. So we did a very thorough research and studies into this framework where we really placed the brand owners in the center of a set of events, communication actions, research studies, questionnaires, surveys, workshops that allowed us to shape solutions to mitigate their perceived risks. And furthermore, we validated these kind of solutions that we proposed forward. Then based on this framework, we've done an extensive work with this BioSwitch toolbox, which is kind of this ultimate instrument that will assist the brand owners in their bio-based transition journey. So there are different types of brand owners in terms of readiness level. So we've done activities relating to that. And we have structured the BioSwitch toolbox that has these multiple elements that you will be and tools that you'll be hearing today. They've been targeted to fit the needs of the sectors that are in the scope of BioSwitch, so chemistry, forest, food, and agriculture. Then we've been validating this toolbox, and we're now in the final steps of the EU rollout. So this is the Train the Trainer event that we are today having as well, in addition to this final event. But this has a lot of content, a lot of things have gone into this BioSwitch toolbox, building it, validating it, and you'll be hearing all about it today, as well as the framework findings. So that was all from my side. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a very good conference and Train the Trainer event with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Now is the time for Emily Marsh in the first session of this event, focused on the role of brand owners and consumers in shaping a bio-based transition for Europe. So please, Emily, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Hazel. As Emily Marsh from Munster Technological University, and MTU, along with all BioSwitch project partners, have been involved in investigating the role of brand owners and consumers in shaping a bio-based transition for Europe. So we've done this through a number of research activities. So this was the information gathering phase of the project, the mapping and analysis, and there's a number of outputs we have from this. So we've researched on brand owners' insights, results on brand owners' needs, risks, and motivations with regards to bio-based. Also conducted a EU-wide consumer survey in 3 European countries on consumer awareness, preferences and motivations for buying bio-based products, and also best practice case studies to inspire other brand owners based on bio-based product innovation, bio-based transition journeys, and their lesson learned. And all this information has been presented at workshops, both regional and pan-EU workshops, where we then gathered multi-stakeholder solutions for these perceived risk barriers for brand owners on the uptake of bio-based approaches. So some of our main findings from that, the brand owner insights and the consumer surveys, these have been incorporated into infographics and other tools for the learning and awareness tools in the BIOSWITCH toolbox. And John in session 2 will go into further detail on everything else that's involved in the toolbox. So understanding the brand owners' perspectives on making the transition to bio-based alternatives, and they're in supporting incentive measures then for brand owners. The main findings from our survey on brand owners' perceptions, this is across 60 brands across 10 countries, EU countries, and the main findings in this that 85% of brand owners are interested in the uptake of bio-based material. This is for packaging and also product. So the main products of great interest is in packaging, food and flavor, personal care and cosmetic, fertilizer, feed and constructions materials. So out of those that don't already incorporate bio-based materials, 95% of those would be interested in bio-based packaging. This is kind of the largest product area. But there are some barriers and risks for brand owners, and we gathered some information on that. The main barriers are a cost, uncertainty around functional performance, incompatibility, supply chain uncertainties, and also regulatory challenges for brands. There's certain materials that they bring into their value chain. There might be certain regulatory challenges on bringing that to market then. So there's 75% expected strong to moderate growth over the next 5 years. So even with these perceived barriers, there's still quite a positive outlook for brands and industries. So the main motivations around that are meeting company targets, meeting consumer demand, a green marketing opportunity, and improvement of functionality as well as legislation. So how did we arrive at these barriers and solutions? Well, there was desk-based research conducted by MTU, VTT in Finland, BTG in the Netherlands, but also all project partners. There was regional interviews conducted in Belgium, Denmark, Finland and Spain, and this was increased to an overall of 60 responses of brand owners by an online pan-EU survey. This was increased again by presenting these results at regional workshops. We had 145 participants in the 4 regional workshops and 64 participants in the pan-EU workshops. Between these, all contributed to the barriers and risks survey responses for brand owners, and then also the solutions. So just kind of delving a bit deeper into some of these results, then the main barriers to bio-based ingredients, 58% indicated cost as the main barrier, and 54% uncertainty around functional performance. So this was the EU-wide survey, identified those 2 main barriers, but there are some regional variations. Throughout Belgium, Spain, Finland, and Denmark, all indicated a cost. That was in the regional and pan-EU, that was kind of the main perceived barrier. But then the regional variations, then Belgium was more concerned around customer knowledge on the benefit of bio-based products, Spain more so on the lack of customer knowledge, Danish brands around the sustainability of bio-based products, and then Finnish brands were concerned with all those, but also lack of on-the-market products. So these results from the brand owners were then presented at workshops, both regionally and pan-EU, and these were re-evaluated, the main barriers, by pan-EU stakeholders. So they identified a lack of supporting policies and concerns around sustainability of feedstock as ranking higher. And this is in contrast to the pan-EU survey, where it was only brand owners surveyed. They were more concerned about cost and uncertainty around functional performance. This is more to do with kind of the value chain and the actual production of bio-based products. They were their main concern, of course. But then from a wider stakeholder viewpoint, kind of more concerns around kind of the lower end of the supply chain on and the upper end on the biomass, but then also on consumers as well. So what do brands see as the main risks associated with bio-based uptakes? So for the barriers, it's what they perceive as preventing them on making the transition from fossil-based to bio-based approaches. But once they make the transition or in the process of it, kind of what do the brands see then as the main risks associated with bio-based product uptake? Kind of not as clear here, kind of spread more evenly between the different options, but 61% indicated poor functionality and 52% indicated incompatibility with existing processes as the top risks for brand owners when making the switch from fossil-based to bio-based products and packaging. Again, some regional variations here in the regional survey. So Belgium and Danish brands identified poor functionality as their top risk, but also around feedstock or ingredient supply chain uncertainties, where Spanish brands were more concerned around poor functionality as a top risk, and Finnish brand with incompatibility with existing processes. So solutions to that then, these are the kind of the perceived risks and barriers. So then we wanted to kind of co-create some solutions around this. And this was done in the regional and pan-EU workshops where we had high participation rates and co-created some of these solutions. So they're divided up into categories. They were evaluated based on the barriers and risks, and the solutions have been categorized by solution. So from policy side, some of the recommendations were around requiring a minimum percentage of bio-based content in certain packaging and products, but then also kind of more hard measures around carbon tax on products in conjunction with removal of fossil subsidies. And this is to provide a level playing field where already incentivized bioenergy options. So kind of to provide that market for the bioeconomy. And then also around knowledge and uncertainty on future regulations, which can inform decisions. As this was a certain barrier, especially can be seen in the regional results for Finland, but then also pan-EU, that was a main concern of brands is around future regulations and kind of the need for future-proofing that for the industry. And also around education and knowledge. This is to help consumers to better recognize bio-based products, but also educate and demonstrate the benefit of bio-based products to brands and consumers. This can be done by educating decision makers, a kind of a greater media attention on bio-based, but then also circulating good case studies. So to see the success cases of certain brands or kind of first movers in the bioeconomy to incentivize other brands to also make the transition. One of the major recommendations coming up kind of right throughout the different stakeholders from industry, academia and consumer representatives, labeling standards and certifications were sort of a clear recommendation that was coming through from quite a wide variety of stakeholders. So the importance of clear labeling for bio-based products. So this is kind of for the consumer side, clear instructions also regarding end of life for the consumer and standard on functional environmental performance. Also then for the research and development side, of course, continued improvement to bio-based functionality. Improved functionality will reduce the price pressure for industry, and more comparative studies between bio-based and fossil-based products in specific applications to kind of just give that reassurance to brands. This can be done through LCA, comparative studies, and cradle to cradle. This is for greater market and consumer research on bio-based products as well. So investment, of course, invest in scaling up bio-based production to reduce costs. Again, with the early adopters in the bioeconomy would kind of help bring along the smaller brands. And stakeholder engagement, of course, is particularly important. Greater industry dialogue with regulators, more collaboration in the development of materials and ingredients, and greater cooperation throughout the entire value chain. So we can see later on in consumer results, kind of one of the main concerns for consumers is around end-of-life waste management. So greater engagement throughout from the brands, consumers to waste management providers is of great importance. So from this then, all the results that we gathered from the brand owners and then also the multi-actor workshops, we have the main perceived barriers of high price, uncertainty around functional performance, insufficient consumer demand, lack of supporting policies, and challenges in communicating the environmental benefits. So we wanted to kind of bring these perceived barriers to the forefront and developed a Busting Myths infographic for this. So this is available through the BIOSWITCH website. It's the toolbox, BIOSWITCH Toolbox, learning and awareness tools. So these were to bust some of those main barriers. So for high price, this came out through the pan-EU survey, but also the regional surveys. Cost was kind of one of the main perceived barriers for all brand owners. But this also has a lot of benefits. For one, it's not always a higher price. And then there's benefits around corporate societal responsibility and also meeting a lot of the brand's own sustainability targets, their green profile, kind of green marketing to their consumers. Also a significant share of consumers' willingness to pay the higher price. So even if there is a higher production cost, that can be moved to the consumers in certain cases. And I'll show later the categories of products that consumers are willing to pay a higher, but there is that significant share there, willingness to pay a green premium. But also then the benefits of applying a smart drop-in chemicals, they might even be cheaper than their fossil-based counterparts. So then for uncertainty around functional performance, this is another main perceived barrier. So for this, again, to kind of reduce any risks around this, drop-in bio-based materials can have an equal performance with the fossil-based counterparts. Also, they can be quite easy to implement technically. You don't always have to change the infrastructure. Certain packaging and project lines will, but for these drop-ins, you can use the existing infrastructure. So there won't be that kind of overall higher cost at all. And many bio-based ingredients and products also offer a benefit of like unique properties and also some superior properties to their fossil-based counterparts. So there's also a lot of benefits in that. So for insufficient consumer demand, I have more results on that in the consumer survey, but quite coming across through most of the consumer acceptance analysis. Simple and trustworthy information on bio-based products is the main need for consumers. So if brand owners and industry can address this, there will be much more consumer demand and trust in the bio-based products over the fossil-based. So communicating as well the personal and environmental benefits through clear and simple labels and infographics. And again, also on guidance on end-of-life disposal, it can be seen in the consumer results that these are some motivations for consumers, but there is also still quite a lot of confusion for consumers around this. So clear guidance there is needed. For all the barriers and the risks then, and addressing those, then the motivations of brands for switching to bio-based and the main perceived drivers for growth of consumer demand. What are the main motivations for brands switching to bio-based? Meeting company sustainability targets, 69% of brands indicated that, with 63% indicating meeting consumer demand. So of course it was important then to see the brand owner's perspective on the main drivers for growth of consumers. So not consumers themselves, but this is the brand owner's perspective on it. 73% indicate consumer preference of products with low environmental impact, and 71% of brands indicated improved culture awareness of bio-based products. And this can be seen again in the co-created solutions from the workshop. These are important deeds for the consumer from the brand owner side. So to incentivize the brand owners then, we've had kind of the main motivations for them, where they motivate themselves, but there's also kind of the hard incentive measures where we have direct regulations and economic instruments as a driving force for brands to make that transition. And there's also soft incentive measures where they're more sort of voluntary and optional. So there's the voluntary approaches, information and advice sharing system, market-based signaling approaches, and then other measures and instruments. So for direct regulations, these are around obligatory legislation requirements, and these are requiring certain behavior changes of market actors. These are direct regulation instruments, such as quotes, mandates, product standards, and green procurement. Some example of these is the European directives and bio-based procurement. These are quite limited on a European level, but there are those bioeconomy incentive measures there. So category 2 then is the economic instruments. This is investment, grant subsidies, loans, loan guarantees, tradable certificates, feed-in tariffs, green premiums, tax incentive exemptions, and use charge, and of course, research and technology, and also innovation funds. So the investment grants and subsidies, for example, EU research programs like BIOSWITCH, Horizon 2020, and the BBIJU, and of course, the new Circular Bio-Based Europe joint undertaking. And there's also investment loans available through the European Circular Bioeconomy Fund and other economic instruments, certain national level tax incentives or exemptions. The more sort of soft incentive measures that they're optional for brand owners to participate in this, so would increase their green branding. These are voluntary approaches, company commitments to improve their environmental performance. These can include codes of good practice, self-regulation, and other industry-led initiatives. This encourages rather than forces businesses to change their practices. So the voluntary approaches, for example, the European Plastic Pact. And then there's also information and advice sharing systems. So this can be from not just brands, but a wide variety of stakeholders and the initiatives of sharing bioeconomy information and advice on bioeconomy topics. So this can be through web portals and platforms, for example, the Knowledge Center on Bioeconomy or BIC's digital bioeconomy platform. Also business networks and cluster and ad hoc working groups. For example, here in Ireland, we have the Circular Bioeconomy Cluster Southwest. There's other national and EU clusters, and then also project-based initiatives. Some other soft incentive measures, categories on market-based signal approaches. This is around labeling. Again, this came up as very important from the consumer side. So this is where brands need to be aware of this and take note that labeling and traceability are very important for their consumer demand growth of bio-based products, and also the voluntary certification schemes are available. There's generally a lack of information on bio-based products, and again, this can hinder the proper functionality on markets and access to new consumer markets. These eco-labels, so there's the EU eco-label and then some other national, like the Nordic eco-label, the Blue Angel eco-label, and another EU-wide, the OK Bio-Based. bio-based eco-labels available. So sustainable certification schemes, these are to prove the sustainability of the biomass used as raw materials, and the bio-based carbon content. Also certain certification involve measures on end-of-life options for bio-based products. So other measures and instruments then can be vision documents, like the Joint Industry Vision for Circular Biosecurity 2050, and also around market and industry roadmaps. There's a Road to Bio roadmap, and policy documents and strategy, like the EU bioeconomy strategy. So there are the hard measures and the soft measures there to kind of driving forces kind of to incentivize brand owners to make that transition. And this has come from brand owners themselves, that they need more security around this and to be certain of future regulations. From our co-creation workshops, we presented some of these results and incentive measures, and these were some recommendations provided by multi-stakeholder actors. So this again, coming out clear with standard bio-based labelling. This is coming from a wide variety of stakeholders as a need from both the brand owner and consumer side. National targets for bio-based products and packagings, those quotas, kind of the hard measures, and enforcement of percentage share of bio-based ingredients. Also tax incentive of bio-based can be brought in on a national level, carbon tax, and financial supports for the development of bio-based products and components, and also supply chain improvements to increase communication and harmonization to avoid those bottlenecks. So now that was the brand owner results, and I'd like to share with you our consumer acceptance and demand for bio-based. As brand owners, that was kind of one of their main concern. It's quite positive to see then the consumer results and quite a high acceptance for bio-based products and packaging. So we conducted 3 surveys. The first survey was 1,000 consumers from Ireland and the Netherlands, 500 in each country, and this was from an even spread of ages. Our main results there around not quite positive, 92% believe individual consumer choices can have a positive impact on the environment. This was quite important to gauge on consumer buying habits then, and if they have that awareness and if that motivates them then. So it was certain product categories more likely to buy bio-based products. These were in packaging products, disposable products, cleaning, hygiene and sanitary products, gardening, clothes, and cosmetic and personal care. So then 87% prefer to buy bio-based products over fossil-based. However, 75% of consumers could not name a brand they would consider bio-based, although this is quite high, that there was not that recognition there and they couldn't produce any names of bio-based. It is quite positive for consumers that there's quite high there. 87% would prefer to buy bio-based products over fossil-based counterparts. So which products are they likely to attract and their willingness to pay more? A green premium, these were in clothes and textile, cleaning and hygiene products, disposable products and gardening products. And the terms around then were recyclable, biodegradable, reusable, compostable. We'll go into a bit further detail on those consumer survey results now. So the motivational terms for consumer when buying bio-based products. This is from the Ireland and Netherlands consumer survey. The top 3 motivational terms, 45% indicated biodegradable, 35% recyclable, 30% reusable. So these can be seen from the Dutch and Irish consumers. These were the combined top 3 terms, but there is some variation there for Irish consumers. Again, it was recyclable, biodegradable, and reusable, but also compostable. So those top 4 main terms are all around end of life terms where this is highly important to have that communication with waste management, and then also from the brand owner side to provide that clear information for consumers to avoid any confusion. As this is a motivational term for consumers, it's important to provide that clear information, but also then to provide any information if the industry, if the brands themselves have any responsibility in the end of life of the products. Interestingly, the term bio-based itself didn't score highly. It was only 20% of consumers between the Dutch and Irish consumers chose bio-based. This term isn't as motivating for them as the end of life terms, but also Dutch consumers chose environmentally friendly and sustainable motivational terms over bio-based itself. And then there was a bit of a gender divide there as well. 2.5% of men across Dutch and Irish consumers chose it as a motivational term, but it was slightly quite a bit lower for women, with only 18% choosing that. And we can see that then also in categories as well. There was slight variations between regions and age profiles and men and women. So we also had the Finnish focus group on consumer awareness. Again, it was to see kind of the motivational terms or words associated with bio-based products. So organic, natural, ecological, recyclable, and renewable were the top, the most often mentioned words associated for Finnish consumers. And this was slight variation again from the Dutch and Irish. We have recyclable and renewable in there, but they don't score as highly as organic, natural, and ecological, which suggests Finnish consumers kind of put more emphasis on where the biomass is coming from and how natural the product is. So consumer preference then between the three consumer regional sites, the Finnish consumers, more than 9 out of 10 Finnish consumers expect to buy more bio-based products, as well as products packaged in bio-based material in the future. This is, as brands were most concerned about consumer demand, this is very reassuring then for industry to see that there is this such a high positive outlook from consumers. And again, with the Dutch and Irish consumers, 93% of Irish respondents and 81% of Dutch respondents indicated that they would prefer buying bio-based products rather than fossil-based. So to break it down by product category then, so it's good to have that overall, and there's a positive outlook, but then to get down into particular products or packaging, between 44 and 58% of consumers from Finland, Ireland, and the Netherlands picked the same 4 categories they considered most interesting and most likely to buy bio-based. These were in packaging products, cleaning, hygiene, and sanitary products, disposable products like cups, straws, plates, clothes and textiles, and consumer and personal care. So this is quite interesting. Those particular product categories are products that are kind of close to your skin, like the cosmetic, the clothes, but also close to food consumption, like the packaging and the disposable products. So this indicates, like the Finnish results, that the consumers like to have a more natural product in products and packaging that are close to their skin and food items. But there's also for future consumers then, there was still a similar categories of products that consumers will buy more bio-based products in the future. Those same 5 categories were still of huge importance for future consumers, but then also you see an increase then in other product categories. For instance, gardening products scored highly, more highly. 73% of Irish consumers indicated they would buy more gardening, bio-based gardening products in the future, which is slightly lower of 54% of Dutch. Again, for furniture and home decoration, it was quite high. 61% of Irish consumers indicated they were willing to buy more bio-based products in this category, compared to 42% of Dutch consumers. But then for construction materials, it was higher for Dutch consumers, with 51% compared to 48% for Irish consumers. For the Finnish focus group, then as packaging products scored quite highly across all consumers throughout Europe, focusing then on food packaging. This is quite, I suppose, an easy win for brands. It might be the easiest for kind of production lines, so it decrease the cost there. There wouldn't perhaps need to be as much changes in supply material. So from the consumer side, then this is the category most likely to buy bio-based was packaging products. 52% for Dutch, 50% for Irish, and 51% for Finnish. So quite similar across the consumers. So for food packaging, then specifically in the Finnish consumer focus group, it was very high. 90% would buy food packaging and bio-based, and this is because quite a few already are. And just some of the perceptions for consumers around that, then they agreed with that the bio-based packaging material doesn't affect the food taste of the food inside. Also more at the end of life, the packaging material easy to recycle, the biomass, the material used less polluting, materials are environmentally friendly, and also that they would like to buy food products in bio-based packaging. And again, we could see from the other consumer studies that having this food packaging is quite positive for consumers. There might be concern around environmental, but also personal health, with like microplastics from fossil-based plastics, perhaps quite a high concern for consumers. So this is quite a positive category then, which is bio-based food packaging. So the consumer's willingness to pay more, as this was one of the main barriers for consumers. It was, let's say then, to see were consumers willing to pay more, that brands can move some of that potential extra cost onto the consumers. There is that willingness there. A third of Dutch and Irish consumers are willing to pay up to 10% more for bio-based products. This is across all categories. And then to break it down, it was a bit higher than for the willingness. This was a combined category of willingness to pay up to 10%, up to 25%, and up to 50% more. So combined for that, then it was nearly 50% across clothes and textile, cleaning and hygiene and sanitary products, cosmetic and personal care, and disposable products. Again, these were the main categories seen on consumers that are already buying in those categories, but there is quite positive results there for other product categories as well. However, the category with the lowest willingness to pay a premium was on home office supplies, sports equipment, and vehicles. But again, this might be due to it there being more sort of outside the home, or not as close, or perhaps affecting personal health. It was more around those products that are more motivation for consumers. So for consumers' motivation to buy bio-based products, for Finnish consumers, the top motivators to buy bio-based were financial incentives, clear and transparent information on the whole value chain, as well as clear information on the product's end of life. And came in fourth there was reduced prices. But for the Dutch and Irish consumers, the price was of top concern. So for consumer motivations, the highest category consumer motivations to buy bio-based products was to lower the price of the product, reliable information on the environmental impact of the product, and products being easy to recognize as being bio-based compared to the fossil-based. Again, this comes into those co-created solutions, the recommendations that were provided on clear labeling and transparent information being provided to the consumers. So all those results we have published in 3 scientific journals. So we have the bio-based, the brand owners' perspectives on bio-based products, and then also the 2 consumer surveys, the comparative case study from Ireland and the Netherlands, and in the regional Finnish social study with future consumers. And I can share the links to those after this session. So just to conclude some of the main points from the brand owner and consumer in shaping a bio-based transition, we have the brand owner needs of competitive cost, superior functionality, and process compatibility chosen as the key requirements for bio-based product uptake by brand owners. But then also for the future for brands is around meeting company sustainability targets and meeting consumer demand are the main motivation for brands, with almost 75% of brands projecting strong to moderate growth in customer demand over the next 5 years, which is then the importance of consumers. Consumer behavior will play a major role in supporting the successful transition to a bio-based economy for Europe, with 87% of consumers indicating that they would prefer to buy bio-based products rather than fossil-based. So it's quite positive outlook there on the consumer side. So there's important information for brand owners to take note of, that future consumers are there, with nearly 90% of consumers wanting to buy more bio-based products in the future, and brands can influence consumers as well as consumers influence brands to further stimulate the market for bio-based products by addressing these consumer needs for transparent information and clear labeling of bio-based products. So thank you very much for listening, and I can take any questions now. Thank you.
Hi, Emily. So we actually do have the first question is from Sonia Hermer, and she asked us if there is one single publication summarizing all these results on consumer preferences.
Yes, we have the 3 publications on consumers. So we have the Finnish study on future consumers, and then the Dutch and Irish consumers, and I can share the links with those in the chat with you. But we also have, they're the scientific publications, but there's also some quite nice infographics available through the BIOSWITCH toolbox. So they're those learning and awareness tools. So we have a consumer infographic, consumer and bio-based, a love story. So kind of the consumer needs and motivations are presented in a quite nice format there. And then also the busting myths infographic. So it has the main findings presented in a clear and informative way there. So they're the 2 main areas to find those information. I'll share the publications and a link to the BIOSWITCH toolbox.
Thank you, Emily. Then we have another question from Andrea. He's asking us if there were any studies on environmental performance or impact of bio-based products when compared to fossil-based products, especially for end of life in a landfill or incinerator.
That wasn't under the scope of these studies. So we were mainly looking at brand owners' perspectives and consumers' perspectives. It didn't go into detail on some of the technical aspects of like certain drop-ins or the performance. It was just to gather information on the brand owners and the consumers, as they play a key role in enabling bio-based products to enter mass markets, and then in turn to influence consumer choices in relation to bio-based products. So the main study we were undertaking was to identify that role of brand owners can play in supporting that market uptake of bio-based products, you know, sort of the value chain integration, but then also the accelerated market uptake of bio-based. So yeah, so brand owners, they play a significant role in increasing the awareness of these products, and then also from the consumer side, then they will address some of the main concern for brand owners. So that was our main view for those study.
Thank you, Emily. Are there any other questions? We have already answered 2 of them. Okay, Andrea says thank you. If there are no other questions, in any case, you can also ask them in the final Q&A session or even through an email, so don't worry. Before we pass on to the next section, we will launch a survey to know more about what do you think about the different materials, surveys and case studies that we are presenting. So I will launch 2 questions. They're pretty short questions, and we do ask you to answer them. So there it goes. The first question says, did you find the learning and awareness tools interesting and useful for your early stage bio-based transition journey? You can select yours yes or no. It's really simple. And the second question is focused on which of the research and information topics that actually Emily already talked about did you find most valuable for your organization. So you can select between brand owner perspectives, consumer perspectives, best practices or case studies, or even the glossary of bioeconomy terms. We're already seeing some of the answers. For the moment, we have that 100% of people are answering yes to the learning and awareness tools. So you find them all interesting. And for the second questions, we'll give a few more minutes. But for the moment, the most valuable research and innovation topic for you is the consumer perspectives. So we'll wait until your answer. I think we're half of the way there. Yeah. Just give like 20 more seconds for you to answer. Okay, so I think that will close this survey. Thank you for answering. After each of the session, we will do the same. So please be participative and take part in the service. So thank you, Emily. Now we can go to the second session. Hi, John. The floor is all yours.
Yes, good morning, everybody. It is my pleasure to tell you a bit more about the BIOSWITCH toolbox, which we have developed to accompany brand owners on the transition from fossil to bio-based approaches. And our initial set of tools integrates findings from our various surveys and workshops, as were detailed by Emily just before in her presentation. And after a validation round, we refined these tools where needed, and we also added 3 more tools, more or less on the request of stakeholders. The tools that we developed are grouped according to the bio-based readiness level, and that level can be determined using one of our own tools. It is the BIOSWITCH self-assessment test. The results of this test lead you to the category of tools that we think can be of most interest and relevance. You don't have to make the test per se. If the bio-based readiness level is not known, you can freely have a look at the different tools. In the Train the Trainers events this afternoon, Gijzel will inform further about the self-assessment tool, whereas Tina will introduce the sustainability assessment tool. It is my pleasure to tell a bit more about the 15 or so communication material type tools that we developed. And we have grouped these tools in 3 categories. There is the learning and awareness tools that are targeting brand owners that are at the beginning of a potential bio-based transition journey, offering them basic information and evidence that may help to convince them to make a step forward. The second category are the adoption tools, and these are intended to accelerate the journey of a brand owner that is at the medium stages of transition from fossil-based to bio-based, and who would still benefit from some targeted guidance. The consolidation tools are addressing brand owners that have implemented bio-based approaches to a great extent, but that feel they may still benefit from some support how to make the most out of their transition. So first, the learning and awareness tools. These include 3 documents, 2 videos, and 1 webinar. So let us first have a look at the documents. The infographic called Consumers and Biobased: A Love Story presents information about how consumers conceive and understand bio-based products and the incentives and motivations that drive them to purchase them instead of fossil-based alternatives. In this infographic, you could say that we present the key results and findings of consumer-related research, including the focus group discussions held in Finland with 50 persons, as well as the structured surveys held in Ireland and the Netherlands with a total of 1,000 people. And Emily just gave us the detailed results on those. They are reported in 2 academic papers, but they are also presented in a more easy, accessible infographic, the Consumer and Biobased: A Love Story document. The second document is our brochure, Understanding the Main Barriers Perceived by Brand Owners. And it provides insights from our research into key barriers for switching to bio-based approaches. This research involves a combination of desk research, interviews, surveys, regional workshops, as well as pan-European workshops. Then the third document shown here, it was actually added at the request of the stakeholders in the validation exercise, is a glossary. And this glossary explains the most relevant terms and concepts with regard to bioeconomy, bio-based products, and the transition from fossil to bio-based production. I think it's a fairly comprehensive document, and I've been informed that certain universities are using it in their education of students. So that means that it addresses a need. Now I come to the audiovisual materials in this first category of learning and awareness tools. We have produced a short video, Why Switching to Bio-based, and it illustrates the main incentives and motivations for brand owners making the switch from fossil-based to bio-based. It also sums up the overall concept, objectives, and expected impact of our project, the BIOSWITCH project. Secondly, BIOSWITCH held a webinar entitled Successful Transition from Fossil to Bio-based Products, and that aims to showcase key paths and actions that can be undertaken by a brand owner, as well as best practices to switch to bio-based. And here we actually reported the findings from 6 case studies that we conducted, 6 best practices, and different brand owners from companies both large and small shared their experiences and the keys for their successes in making a transition. We captured the experience in 6 documents, 1 for each case study, and we invited the showcased companies to talk about their experience in a webinar. The video Switching to Bio-based Hall of Fame once more shows the success cases that inspire brand owners and serve as an example. And this video was created from the trimmed recording of the mentioned BIOSWITCH webinar. The second category, it's the adoption tools. Here we also have a handful of different documents. Some of them web-based and are interactive, and we have 2 workshop formats. First of all, what can BIOSWITCH do for you? This is a PowerPoint presentation that explains what a BIOSWITCH project is about and how a stakeholder can engage with it and profit from it. The purpose of this document was to present short project information to interested brand owners and other actors. Secondly, there is an interactive web page. Who can help me? It maps industries, research centers, and networking organizations operating in European bio-based industry that can support brand owners in a transition from fossil-based to bio-based approaches. And then thirdly, there's the sustainability assessment tool, which is implemented as a cloud service. And it's a tool that allows brand owners to compare the sustainability effects resulting from adoption of new bio-based approaches versus current implementation of production processes. It's actually a topic where one of the questions earlier today was hinting at. And as already mentioned, we will hear more about Tina. We will hear more about this from Tina during the trainer session this afternoon. I continue with some more adoption tools that we developed. There were 2 formats for further targeted services that we developed. It's the Build Me the Value Chain workshop format and the Let's Build Together the Value Chain pan-European online matching service. And in both of these services, the brand owner is the focal point. Both involve the bio-based industry, so that new connections and business opportunities can be spotted in order to build the new value chain that a transition to bio-based approaches might demand. More information about this will be presented by Mata from our project partner CTA in the Train the Trainers event this afternoon. Then there is the brochure, I Am Bio-Based, which contains a set of communication guidelines, customizable messages, and other materials that brand owners can use on social media to reach customers and consumers and make them aware of the relevance of switching from fossil-based to bio-based approaches. And then as the last element in the adoption tools, it's an additional element that we added after validation. And what we actually did is we had a good look at the results and outcomes of various other projects addressing awareness raising, either of a specific target group or on a specific theme. And you see here on the screen 8 documents, 8 items that we selected based on this analysis. Some address a bio-based day. It's a video about everyday use of bio-based products. Some go into public procurement, so it's specifically for those involved in procurement processes. Some are about perceptions, some are about food packaging. There's a wide variety here. There were a lot more that we could choose from, but these are the 8 that we thought would serve the largest audience. Finally, the third category is the consolidation tools. We produced the fact sheet, We Are All Bio-Based, and it presents key facts and figures on the European bioeconomy, as well as about bio-based products and their advantages, and also about brand owners featuring in the BioSwitch best practice case studies, providing testimony that using innovative bio-based materials can reduce the environmental impact while also improving technical attributes. Another element is actually a combination of 3 items on open innovation. Open innovation, for those that are not familiar with it, is a business management model for innovation that promotes collaboration with people and organizations outside the company and also inside the company, including staff that is not directly linked to the research and development department. And the aim of our tools in BioSwitch is to facilitate brand owners to adopt open innovation as a powerful tool to enhance the impact of their innovation actions. And in our, you could call it a mini toolbox, we included 3 items. The first is a booklet that gives an overview of open innovation in the bio-based area and why it is needed. The second is a short instruction video that gives an introduction about some key open innovation tools. And the third one is a short survey that helps brand owners assess what they need to implement open innovation in their organization. And after completing the survey, they received a customized assessment about the best tools and practices to promote and expand an open innovation strategy. Then I come to the final element we implemented as part of the communication type toolbox. Again, an item that was added at a request, so to say, in the validation stage. And this was a series of webinars that we implemented this February on every Tuesday morning, where we covered bio-based plastics, bio-based textiles, bio-based chemistry, and agri-food in a total of 4 different webinars. And in each webinar, we aim to make the connection with other EU-funded projects by inviting presenters from research projects that were close to project completion. This is, and the recordings are available at the URL listed here below. Well, this is a quick summing up of the different communication type material tools we developed in BioSwitch. As I said, it integrates to one end the findings of the detailed work of the survey, of the workshops, etc. we did in an earlier part of the project. And on the other hand, it makes the connection of some of the work done in other bio-based projects on the bioeconomy. And I hope to have given you a broad overview. For the details, I'm happy to refer you to the project website. I thank you for listening, and this brings me to the end of my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I think now Carmen will also present as part of this second session. Please, Carmen, share your screen We cannot see you, Carmen. I'm not sure if you know. Okay, now yes, and you're muted. So please switch your microphone on.
Okay, thank you, Hazel.
Okay. Thank you,
Can you
Carmen.
see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm Carmen Ronchel from CTA, and now we are going to present concrete tools to support brand owners in the shift from fossil-based to bio-based approaches. The BIOSWITCH toolbox could be a key element in the BIOSWITCH journey of European regions. 4 flagship brand owners have been involved in the project and have a benefit from the BIOSWITCH toolbox. A regional replication assessment has been conducted for the brand owners in each cluster network: Andalusia, Flanders, Finland, and Denmark. The aim was to assess the bioeconomy transition potential of each region and to delve into how the BIOSWITCH toolbox could benefit not only brand owners, but also the rest of stakeholders in the quadruple helix. Let's start by Andalusia case study. Andalusia is the 4th region of the European Union according to its area and the most populated in Spain. The agri-food sector is the first industrial sector. Andalusia possesses the necessary resources and capacities for the development of the bioeconomy due to 4 relevant factors: an abundant production of biomass that come mainly from agriculture and agroindustry, main biomass opportunities and identified for olive biomass, intensive horticulture, and seaweed production. The presence of a developed industrial sector. Agribusiness is the activity of the first magnitude in the regional productivity structure, with more than 5,000 companies. Another important factor is an extensive knowledge network. The 10 public universities, the campus of international excellence, and several technology parks allow to support the new economic model. And political support. The regional government has approved the Andalusian circular bioeconomy strategy, focuses on the regional bioeconomy area less developed. Concerning brand owners and their involvement in regional bioeconomy, the following profiles of brand owners have been identified as working in sectors that could switch from fossil to bio-based. Profile 1 include brand owners from primary sector, which present great opportunities for improvement under the framework of the circular bioeconomy. In general, this is a sector that is just starting the transition. Learning and awareness tools can be useful to understand what bioeconomy implies, and also sustainability assessment tools can help comparing scenarios and noticing the improvement they will get. Profile 2 include brand owners from the agri-food industry interested in byproducts and waste valorization. From this group, there are some organizations that haven't grasped yet the opportunity that bioeconomy brings. In this profile, we are include brand owners from the agri-food sector that are at the medium stage of the bio-based transition journey. In this case, adoption tools can help them in consolidating their transition to bio-based processes and products. They could use the sustainability assessment tool to assess the positive environmental impact of byproducts and side stream utilization, and build me the value chain service and who can help me. There are other organizations which have done a step toward bioeconomy approaches, adoption, and implementation. In profile 2B, are brand owners already using biopackaging, biocompounds, bioactive compound, etc. In this case, consolidation tools are useful for them, especially open innovation tools, since these companies could benefit from a stronger cooperation with the rest of the innovation ecosystem in order to share the risk and decrease the time to market in the new products and processes. Both groups can benefit from consumer target tools to create awareness of the added value of bio-based products. The last profile is profile 3, and in this profile include brand owners from biotechnology companies producing bio-based alternatives such as biofertilizer, biostimulant, or biopesticide based on different types of microorganisms or bioactive compounds. These are fully engaged to switch to bio-based approaches, and the most suitable BIOSWITCH tools for them are the consolidation tools. Also, the sustainability assessment tool will allow them to assess the environmental improvement that their products could have. There are other stakeholders that could benefit from BIOSWITCH toolbox. Concerning policymakers and public body, regional government has been in charge of developing the current circular bioeconomy Andalusian strategy, being right now focuses on its implementation. Moreover, the region is currently in the process of going from S3, Smart Specialization Strategies, to S4, Smart Specialization Strategy for Sustainability. They could benefit from the visiting myths about switching to bio-based tools, since these could provide them valuable information for policy shaping and also when developing incentive-related mechanism and financing scheme. Regarding the private sector, for startup entrepreneurs developing new processes, service, and products, the tool related to learning and awareness can provide them valuable insight about brand owners' needs and challenges. From the academia side, there are 10 different universities in Andalusia with 555 research groups devoted to bioeconomy related areas. Moreover, there are several research centers. This organization will be benefit from the Who Can Help Me tool. From the consumer side, the Andalusian Consumer Union have been involved in the project as part of the advisory board and have been regularly updated about the most suitable tools that could benefit Andalusian consumers. Andalusian consumers could benefit from consumer and bio-based allowance theory. We are all bio-based, etc. In addition, there are other regional initiatives that are relevant for the bioeconomic regional development. These are the Andalusian Bioeconomy Cluster and the Digital Innovation Hub Agrotech. Both could register in the Who Can Help Me tool in order to increase their outreach among Andalusian companies. Let's move on to Denmark case study. Here some facts and figures about Denmark. Denmark is a country in Northern Europe with a population of 5.9 million inhabitants. The share of the total area used for agricultural crops is around 60% and 13% is forest. Bioeconomy contributes 11% of the gross domestic products. Denmark is characterized by a large livestock production of a small country, and this forms the basis of a large meat processing industry and dairy industry. There is a strong potential for the development of bioeconomy in Denmark. Large amount of bio-based residues and potential for increasing biomass production, strong research competencies within sustainable biomass production, biotechnology, and biorefining, world-leading brand owners, and an ambitious climate target and public support to develop the solution of the circular bioeconomy. The potential for switching to bio-based products have been analyzed for different product categories. In all of the sector analyzed, we can find brand owners in different stages of the transition to bio-based approaches. The first two profiles have a less consolidated transition. The learning and awareness tools can be very useful for those brand owners who are just starting the transition. The BIOSWITCH Sustainability Assessment tool can be relevant for all the product categories analysis, since a reduces carbon footprint and other environmental benefits often constitute the main driver for switching to bio-based. Build Me the Value Chain service and the Open Innovation tools are judged to be relevant for brand owners within product categories like textile for clothes, furniture and other purposes, fertilizer, pesticide and biostimulant, and construction materials. In addition to brand owners in Denmark, there are other types of stakeholders who could benefit from the BIOSWITCH toolbox in order to accelerate the transition from fossil-based to bio-based products and approaches. Especially the BIOSWITCH communication tools are relevant for policymakers, retailers, representatives from the financial sector and consumer organizations in order to raise awareness about the opportunity for switching to bio-based. The tools understanding the barriers is important, particularly for Danish and EU politicians, in order to inform about suggested action to overcome this barrier. Moving on to Finland. Finland is in Northern Europe and has a strong background in electrotechnical goods, metal products, machinery, transport equipment, wood and paper-based products, and chemicals. Finland has a long history and a strong forest industry. Over 75% of Finland lands is covered by trees. There are over 22 million trees in Finland, which make it about 4,500 trees per Finnish person. Finland's bioeconomy generated 26 billion euro of value in 2019. Over 40% of the value added generated come from bioeconomy. Bioeconomy employs about 11% of total employment in Finland. Finland has also a strong research, development, and innovation know-how, expertise, and supporting infrastructure. Finland has sustainably managed forests, and Finnish wood-based innovation strongly rely on this feedstock. From primary production, the raw material are processed up and upgraded into value-added products. Target bio-based raw materials and higher added value products are cosmetic, food materials, hygiene products, etc. The big forest industry companies with broad product categories in Finland and are front runners in bioeconomy. Their benefit in the BIOSWITCH toolbox lies in utilizing the materials to support their customer brand owners to switch to their solution. Benefit can be also gained with the BIOSWITCH Sustainability Assessment tool, as their solution can be ready compared to fossil-based counterparts. In Finland, there are several smaller companies and startups that produce bio-based material and products, especially in the field of packaging. The smaller companies and startups utilizing wood-based resources to produce packaging are well aware of the bioeconomy and the benefits of their products. They will benefit from the BIOSWITCH Sustainability Assessment tools to be able to showcase their next generation of high-performing packaging materials advantages. The ready-made communication materials will be utilized to communicate about benefit of bio-based alternative, which will save research from a startup growing company resources. And finally, the matchmaking services could be more important to growing and smaller companies to accelerate business growth. The last case study is Flanders. The bioeconomy of Flanders include all activities associated with the production of biomass and the various ways in which this biomass and its residual stream are subsequently used. The biggest bioeconomy sector in Belgium is the food, beverages, and tobacco sector. The sector of bio-based chemical, pharmaceutical, plastic, and rubbers ranks second, and the sector with the third higher production is agriculture. In 2021, the Flemish government publishes a new policy note to the Flemish government on the bioeconomy policy of Flanders. The policy note delineates 4 major themes: biomass production, synthetic biology and biological prospection, technological and chemical transformation of biomass and side stream, and support technologies of new bio-based value chain. 3 profiles have been identified in Belgium, in Flanders. 2 brand owners profile geared toward transitioning themselves from bio-based to from fossil-based to bio-based products. These include brand owners from the food processing industry switching from fossil-based to bio-based packaging, and brand owners from the food processing industry replacing synthetically derived additive with bio-based alternative. A third and final brand owner profile are brand owners from the food processing industry who work on the valorization of their side stream and total biomass valorization. For the first profile, sustainability assessment tools and learning and awareness tools will support building a more scientifically grounded internal viewpoint and a burning platform for bio-based packaging. For the second profile, Build Me the Value Chain service or online mass making service could help brand owners in sourcing R&D service providers. A further step in the transition journey of this brand owner will be to consider the open innovation tools. For the last profile, tools such as the open innovation tools of Build Me the Value Chain service will be instrumentalized to sort the right combination of technology providers. Across the different brand owner profiles, 3 stakeholders in Flanders are key in implementing brand owner bio-based transition: policymakers, retailers, and consumers. The BioSwitch toolbox and its different support tools could be insightful for policymakers in Flanders to understand the commercialization pathway of bioeconomy and bio-based innovation from a brand owner's perspective. Retailers could be an additional audience for the BioSwitch toolbox, especially for what concerns the diverse set of communication materials type tools that were developed within the learning and awareness adoption as well as consolidation tools. Finally, perhaps consumers are the stakeholders which are most instrumental in implementing brand owner bio-based transition. Brand owners could use different materials produced within the context of the BioSwitch toolbox and further co-create and co-design solutions and communication approaches with customers. Furthermore, they could apply the open innovation tools in such customer-centric approaches. As the conclusion, brand owners are a key stakeholder to implement the bio-based economy at EU, national and regional and local level. The BioSwitch toolbox will be a key element in the BioSwitch journey of European regions. The regional replication assessment was carried out in 4 regional that represent 4 different value chains, and the BioSwitch toolbox will be valuable for all 4. The ready-made communication materials could be utilized by brand owners from different sectors and different maturity level in the bio-based approaches. And policy makers, retailers, and consumers and other stakeholders can benefit from BioSwitch toolbox. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carmen, for such an interesting presentation, and also thank you, Jen. We'll now enter the third part of this event, the third session. In this opportunity, our project coordinator, Anna, will be the one hosting it, and we will also have some inputs from, from Torquil and Emma, and we also count with the participation of some of the advisory board members of the BIOSWITCH project in the expert panel discussion. So please, Torquil, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Heisel. And I will just ask if you can see my presentation in full screen.
Yes, it works.
Thanks. Hello, everybody. My name is Torquil Fransen. I'm working in Food and Biocluster Denmark, which is a partner in the BIOSWITCH project. And now we will move on to look at the value chains for bio-based products and approaches. And in this session 3, I will start with the presentation on matchmaking events as an effective way of identifying new suppliers, new buyers of your products or product components. Could also be identification of new partners for collaborative research and development projects. So a few words about the importance of secure value chains. What we see is that in Emily's presentation also illustrated that there are some barriers for shifting to bio-based products. And one of them is unstable supply of feedstocks or product components. So if you're not sure you can get your feedstock or your components as a brand owner, you will be less willing to shift your fossil-based feedstock and components to bio-based. So you need to be sure that you can have your input this month and also next month and after 6 months. Another barrier is unpredictable prices. If you, as a brand owner, is not sure how the price will develop for the input for your production, you will be more reluctant to do the shift to fossil-based. And moving to a new industry with only few companies supplying feedstocks and the product components, you can come in a situation where you as a brand owner is dependent on one or two or few suppliers of your input. And that's not a very good situation for a brand owner. And therefore, if you look into a monopoly supplier situation, you are again less willing to shift to bio-based. And then another factor is the sustainability profile of the bio-based components or feedstock. If you're not, as a brand owner, sure of the sustainability profile, then you will be less willing to shift to bio-based, because in many cases that's what you want. It's to have a more sustainable input for your production. So to accelerate the shift from fossil-based to bio-based, the brand owners need secure value chains, and that's what we are looking into in this presentation. There's a tendency of looking towards shorter value chains, especially after the last couple of years, because we have seen at a global scale that long value chains can be a bit tricky. 2 examples is the COVID-19 situation, And the picture here shows the Shanghai port, and still it's locked down due to present COVID-19 situation in that city, making brand owners all over the world waiting for their input or their final products. So it's becoming very clear that secure value chain is very beneficial, and also shorter value chains. The other example is, of course, the terrible war in Ukraine, illustrating that such an incident will destroy the existing value chains, and making brand owners need to have their inputs difficult to meet. So again, this is a tendency towards shorter value chains, and that would also contribute with less energy costs for transport from one continent to another one, and thereby also a smaller carbon footprint. So how to make Europe less dependent on fossil resources and long value chains? Increase recycling of materials to use the materials we have already several times. Keep both bio-based and fossil-based carbon in the loop as long as possible. That's one action to reduce dependency on fossil resources. Another action is to increase the amount of biomass produced in Europe, and there is potential for significantly increasing the amount of sustainably produced biomass in Europe. The third action is to use the biomass we already have in a smarter way, and that's, for instance, to do better use of residues and side streams through biorefining via cascading concepts. Finally, to facilitate the development of short and more secure value chains is another action to make Europe less dependent on fossil resources. And that's the fourth point I will dig more into. In the BIOSWITCH project, we have worked with this concept, online matchmaking events. What is it? It's a virtual marketplace where actors within the bio-based economy can meet. This marketplace is open, of course, to brand owners, private companies, but also to other actors within the bio-based economy, like industrial organizations, representatives from research institutes, universities, and other stakeholders. And the purpose of this virtual marketplace is to facilitate new contacts and to establish new bio-based value chains. And here are some examples of potential matches. A supplier of a bio-based product component can reach out and meet brand owners from other parts of Europe with a wish to replace certain fossil-based components with bio-based components. That's one example. Another one is looking into the packaging. Supplier of bio-based packaging can reach out and meet brand owners with a wish to replace different types of fossil-based packaging. And we've seen that some examples of that in the BIOSWITCH project. Could also be a technology provider or bio-based feedstock supplier reaching out to a producer of bio-based packaging. And finally, the fourth example here, a brand owner wishing to collaborate about the development tests of bio-based solutions can reach out and meet the researcher or consultant to engage in cooperation to do that development. A quick tour on how it works in reality. Well, it's important to scope this matchmaking event in the clever way, and to make a clear definition of the target group for this event. Then an event website is launched with the description of the overall theme and the possibility for interested parties to register for the event. And then participants are attracted, and the scene is set by making a webinar program with the speakers presenting new knowledge of relevance for this theme. Could also be new knowledge about regulation, because regulation means quite a deal. And then very important, to promote the event among potential participants throughout Europe through all types of channels, newsletters, SoMe, and so on, to meet all interested parties. And then in the weeks before the event, the registered persons can screen the profiles of the other participants, and learn more about what kind of solutions and requests they have. And then all registered persons can ask for one-to-one meetings with other participants of interest. And this is done through the event website. And then the webinar presenting the program with new knowledge results is done 4 to 7 days before the matchmaking event itself. On the day of the matchmaking, the participants, they log on to the event website, and automatically they are sent to the different meetings they have requested. And each meeting, typically it has a duration of 20 minutes, could be a little more, a little less, but not too long. And after each meeting, the participants conclude with an agreement how to proceed. And a next step could be a follow-up online meeting, or it could be a physical visit to meet and discuss face to face. And we had such an online matchmaking event last year in September in the BIOSWITCH project. And in that case, we focused on the sustainable and bio-based packaging solutions. And also this spring, we had another one, bringing value to agro biomass in last week. So to sum up and end my presentation, online matchmaking as a service. If you're looking for suppliers of bio-based feedstock, product components, or packaging solutions, this could be a relevant service for you. Buyers business to business for your bio-based packaging or bio-based feedstock product components. Could also be dealers for your bio-based products, or collaboration partners for research projects. Then this can be a relevant tool for you, a very effective way of meeting new collaboration partners without spending time and money for traveling. And we can assist you from the BIOSWITCH project, setting up such an online matchmaking event. And you can read more on the BIOSWITCH website. So thanks for the word. I will stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Thorkild. And now we will have Emma's presentation still before we jump into the panel discussion. Emma, please go ahead.
Yes, hello everybody. Yes. Do you see my slides?
Yes, but not in present. Now it's presentation.
Oh, okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Then I kick off. So good morning, everybody. I'm Emma Sitchwick from Flanders Food. And yes, so Torkild presented a service to kind of screen a wide range of potential collaborators. And in my short presentation, I will focus on a challenge-driven service in the BIOSWITCH toolbox. And this challenge-driven service was initially conceived by our colleagues of CTA, and it's a service to find solution providers for very specific gaps and challenges that brand owners may face in their bio-based value chains. We have also tested and validated this service with the major brand owners, and with Flanders Food, we have collaborated for that with Alpo, which is now part of Danone, and it's actually via the Alpo case that I will provide you some insights into this so-called Build Me the Value Chain service. I want to start my presentation with a couple of words on what are the needs behind this service. Because actually when we zoom in on very specific bio-based value chains, we see that brand owners at an individual level can often be confronted with gaps and challenges, which are quite specific and for which they find it very difficult to source the right solution providers. And I just want to make reference to an article of 2018, and the title is Bridging the Gaps for a Circular Bioeconomy. And the authors in the article actually visually map the most promising bio-based value chains for Europe. And you see an example here on the left for the value chain starch to bio-based plastics. And this type of visual maps, so here you see the bio-based value chain mapped out for material flow, technology routes, and stakeholders, so the different chain actors involved. And these maps actually reveal, that these type of bio-based value chains require really linkages and interactions between many different chain stages, chain actors, conversion routes, product applications. So these chains are complex and they are also highly integrated in nature, and this sometimes makes it really difficult for brand owners at an individual level to connect all the dots, to find all the links, and to find solution providers for those. So these are the needs that this Build Me the Value Chain service caters to. It is a customized service to source, select, and match solution providers for very specific value chain gaps and challenges. And it pertains to the adoption tools. So it is a tool which is also geared towards accelerating the journey of brand owners. And we have tested also this tool with the 4 major brand owners, and we have worked with Alpo. Now, Alpo, now part of Danone, is a front runner in plant-based innovation. So they're highly specialized in producing plant-based alternatives to dairy products. And of course, they also see to complement this with transitioning towards bio-based packaging. And also they're quite front running. So this picture presents their strategy and the strategic pillars they focus on. And you see that the keystone, closing the loop on packaging, indeed focuses on less and better packaging. Below this picture, you see how they work towards this strategic pillar. They focus indeed on less packaging, on fully recyclable packaging, and then also on plant-based packaging. So everywhere where possible, they want to transition from fossil-based feedstocks to plant-based feedstocks. And what is nice about Alpo is that they kind of tackle this from different perspectives. So they work on this from an R&D oriented perspective, but also from a science-based sustainability perspective, and also from a strategic communications perspective. So it's quite a holistic approach they take. And when you zoom in on certain packaging materials, for example, we have here their bricks or drink cartons. At the moment, the UHT bricks are for 89% plant-based, but they have set a target to work towards fully plant-based packs. And in fact, this is a challenge that they wanted to work on in the context of the Build Me the Value Chain service. So they presented us with a challenge. They gave it a title, Is There a Holy Grail in Excellently Performing Plant-Based Barrier Solutions? Because in fact, what is prohibiting them from transitioning to fully plant-based drink cartons is that they do not find bio-based alternatives for the oxygen barriers. And so they presented us with this challenge and they asked us, look, can you via this service find a solution providers of bio-based barrier solutions, but also keeping in mind that functional performance should be similar to the fossil-based barriers that we currently use. So that was quite a challenge. And how did we then work on this via the Build Me the Value Chain service? We worked in 4 steps, really customized to Alpo's specific needs and wishes. So the first step consisted of really scoping and refining the challenge together with Alpo, because initially they were also thinking of addressing different challenges which were more like policy oriented, but then we collectively decided, okay, we take a more R&D oriented challenge for this service. We also held a pre-meeting with different consortium partners to also receive their input on the challenge definition, which was eventually a 2-page document where we described the challenge. The second step consisted of collaborative sourcing efforts by all consortium partners. Because yes, commercial solutions are not available, so we really had to tap the networks of the different consortium partners, and this yielded 11 EU-wide leads. Then in a third step, Flanders Food conducted a final selection. So we ended up working with 4 research institutes, 3 material developers, and 1 multidisciplinary packaging consortium. We organized a couple of separate meetings with them to do a final screening to see what do they have in the innovation pipeline, to go through the challenge with them and to prepare them for the 4th step in this service, which is the actual workshop, the Build Me the Value Chain workshop. And here you see a screenshot from the Alpo workshop. It was held online, not only due to COVID measures, but also because we, of course, sourced solution providers from all over Europe. And the agenda of the workshop, so it consisted of the following. So we had Flanders Food detailing the approach and the service. Then we gave the word to Alpo, to the packaging lead, and he again presented the details on the challenge, and then we moved on to a section where we had like bilateral meetings between Alpo and the different solution providers. So what were the eventual outputs of these meetings? Concretely, this pertains to the confidentiality of the company, so I cannot really elaborate on that, but I can tell you that the second step was really instrumental in this testing of the service, because it was really very important that we could tap the networks of the different cluster partners, and this really presented the added value to Alpo. And with that, I come to my final slide. So what was actually the added value of the Build Me the Value Chain service? So ultimately, for Alpo, it resided in sense checking their bio-based packaging roadmap. Because normally, Alpo speaks to packaging converters, their suppliers, but this service now also helped them to gain insights into the innovation pipeline at the side of the raw material suppliers and research and technology organizations. So since no commercial solutions are at hand already, this was really very insightful for them to be able to discuss this. So they gained a better understanding of technologies that could and should be in focus, and they could accordingly adapt their strategic packaging roadmap. So I think as a key takeaway, I think this case really proved the added value of this service, but you should develop it really case by case. So it should be highly customized to the specific brand owner needs and challenges. And of course, the outputs and outcomes are always very diverse. And also this service will be offered via the BIOSWITCH website for brand owners who are interested in taking this up. So that was my presentation on the Build Me the Value Chain service.
Thank you very much, Emma. Are there any immediate questions from the audience? Please keep them coming into the Q&A. You can also use the chat function. And we will now begin the interesting panel discussion that we have lined up ahead. So may I please ask our panel members, our dear advisory board members, to come online. Thank you. Hi, Melissa. Hi, Dennis.
Hi, everyone.
And then we should have Marco as well. We were also supposed to be joined, or Sarah Hickinbottom was also going to be joining, but unfortunately she cannot make it today, but I'm sure we can have a very good discussion with the three of us, and Emma and Thorkild will also stay online with them to discuss with us. But maybe just a quick round of introductions into our experts today. So Melissa Folek, you're from Haldor Topsoe, and Dennis Hertzberg, you are from Clipcaster, and then Marco Rupp, you're from the Bio-Based Industries Consortium. So a very warm welcome to all of you. Thorkild and Emma, you guys in the audience, you've seen them and heard a lot about their insights into the discussion already. But what we will be discussing today is the kind of importance of finding those value chains, the challenges that there are to build the value chains, but furthermore, the urgency that there is to do this. And I think, Thorkild, you very well outlined in your presentation the different aspects that are kind of making it even more urgent for us to transition to bio-based solutions. And there are certain kind of important topics, global challenges that can be addressed by even in an accelerated format, transitioning to bio-based solutions, finding those value chains, building those partnerships. So we'll be addressing 3 topics today with the panel. So we're looking at the reaching carbon neutrality and how the bio-based value chains can accelerate that. We're looking at more in detail discussing the supply security, how we can foster replacing fossil-based feedstock with the bio-based value chains. And then finally also talking about the importance of collaboration across the different stakeholders, touching upon a little bit into the policy legislation, and then also the pledges and initiatives that there are for bio-based solutions, and what kind of things we could do more as a bioeconomy together. But maybe if we start ahead with the first topic regarding the carbon neutrality. In Europe, we have a very leading target to become carbon neutral by 2050. Marco, how do you and Bio-Based Industries Consortium see that bioeconomy can support this?
Well, thanks for the question, and thanks for also having me here on the panel today. I think one thing we need to remember, not in the group, but in our conversations with people who are not so familiar with the bioeconomy, is what is really the key advantage for our sector. And I think the key advantage for our sector is that we use recyclable and renewable feedstock, and that this is really the important thing, and we produce a variety of bio-based products and materials that are recyclable, reusable, and compostable or biodegradable at the same time. So really we can create that full circle from the beginning. And I think this is obvious maybe for the people in the group here, but people who are not so familiar with the bioeconomy, I think this needs to be explained then further. And then if you concretely look at climate neutrality, I mean, you can distinguish a little bit at the different emissions you have, scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, for those who are familiar with that concept. And I think here for the bioeconomy, it's really about the scope 3 emissions. So the scope 3 emissions in the value chain and what we can do here along that key advantage. And that's what we need here is biorefineries, R&D, investments to further lift that potential.
Thank you very much. What kind of, from your perspective, why is it so hard to form these value chains and find the new partnerships? What kind of challenges are there? Melissa, Dennis, do you want to take this to start the discussion there?
Yeah, I can start, but I guess we did hear some of it already from Torkil. And there is a little bit on the policy, right? We are first now doing sustainable carbon cycles, where it becoming obvious that, okay, you can come very far, let's say with recycling, you can then circulate the fossil carbon further, but you will have a loss of material. And if you want to keep the fossil carbon in the ground, you need to top that up with solutions from bio-based. So hopefully that will become better. But there is, I would say, still a lack of pull, a lack of commitment to maybe form a value chain that is somewhat tentative, because you cannot immediately hit the scale necessarily. You cannot, everyone needs to kind of try and be on a trial to be able to have success. You have a limited number of drop-in molecules from within bio. Then we heard about the security of supply, which has only gotten worse now with the war in Ukraine. And there is some hesitance, I would say. It's not difficult to make a value chain. It's the funding, it's the commitment and the drive, and the pledges in a way are missing to be able to exert the right pull and compensate for maybe some potential temporary downside versus what you know very well from fossil. Dennis, please, Marco, please go ahead.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Maybe also add that I think one of the biggest advantages of the bioeconomy, that it's so versatile, that there are so many options, is also a kind of a hurdle at the same time, because it's really hard for an individual company to find the perfect solution for them. And we have already seen how complex these value chains and these value networks really are, and how much you have to get in contact, not only with your direct customers or direct suppliers, but in many times also with the steps before that in the value chain. And building these connections is really hard work, and it leads, of course, not only a good overview over these value chains, but also quite some insights, as Emma has shown in the example with Alpro. I think there it worked out pretty well, but only because you had a vast network of actors that really were looking into this value chain, this given value chain, and this is really needed in every case almost, where we want to exchange for bio-based contact and bio-based processes, biotech processes, for example. I think that's really an issue that we have to tackle. And I think this is where a project like BIOSWITCH and the toolboxes you have developed here really can help to support this change and this transformation.
Yeah, thank you, Dennis and Melissa. I think with the value chain building tools that we have developed in the BIOSWITCH, the idea is that the cluster project partners would take it up as a service to offer it further for cluster members. And I just wanted to get your insights, maybe also from Dennis and Marco, but also Torkil and Emma, that how much of an increased need have you seen for this kind of a type of a service? Have there been a lot of inquiries? Please help us. We need to find this type of supplier or a connection. What kind of needs have you seen, and has it increased in the recent years maybe?
Yeah, maybe I'll start before handing over to Marco with an even broader red network with BBI and BIG, of course, CBE and BIG. Sorry, just have to get used to the new name. Yeah, but we definitely see an increase in questions and in this issue in the last years, especially I think I would say in the last 2 to 3 years, we see a lot more market pull really. A lot more questions from the brand owners. What are the options? Can you get us in touch with someone? This is really changed, I think. Looking back into, I think we are active since 2007 with our cluster, our network in Germany and also in Europe. And it was for many years, it has been a technology push story. These are the options. This is there. We have to switch to bio, climate, and so on. But now we more and more see really the demand from the brand owners, seeing that the consumers are asking for sustainable solutions, for renewable, for bio-based, for circular. And this is really the drastic change that we see in the last years, where there's so much more movement also in the suppliers, especially in the chemical industries, that are now really being active because they see that there's concrete, precise demand from their customers, from the brand owners, and this is something that wasn't there like 5 to 6 years ago, perhaps. So yeah, we'll definitely see us change how the market develops and how things are moving. And we see that because of this, especially the big tankers of the chemical industries are now moving towards real sustainability and towards bio-based solutions, whereas in the years before, they of course had this on the radar. It was developed. There has been, of course, R&D activity, but now we see concrete investments, we see plants being built, we see products on the market, and this is really motivating, of course, and yeah, a wonderful situation to be active in the bio-based community right now.
Yeah, maybe I can just add. I think I agree very much with you, Dennis. I see the same movement, and especially this this comment on the very big players, especially in the chemical industry, because we have I've been speaking with some Danish brand owners. They would like to start buying bio-based chemical components, but they deal with big players, and they need big orders before they will set up a new production line on a bio-based component. So, but the pull is being stronger and stronger, and I think also the big players in the chemical sectors, they move, and that's a good situation for this transition.
Yes, I mean, also from my side, I mean, I can only confirm of what has been said. I mean, if you look, for example, at the public-private partnership, where my organization is the private partner in the Circular Bio-Based Europe one, or its predecessor, the Bio-Based Europe joint undertaking, we have been a little bit victim of our own success. If you look at the number of applicants over the last year, how this has been rising, and the budgeting or the funding for the project has stayed the same. I mean, of course, we are happy about the increase in the applicants and the increase in awareness and interest in the projects and in the funding, but certainly more can be done here. I think the drivers for that increase are very various. I think as Dennis said, there's obviously the sustainability driver, the opening of smaller and bigger players to the idea of bio-based projects. In some cases, if you look at the south of Europe, for example, there is not a similar funding instrument for public funding, so they look at Europe to get that funding. So there are different drivers for that in Greece of interest, but yeah, of course, it's, I think, a good story and a success story. Yeah.
Yes, I think, Melissa, did you want to say something else? I noticed you had your mic open.
Yeah, I did at some point, but I mean, I think the interest is just, ramping up, and there's a very different situation versus, I don't know, 6 or 10 years ago, whenever, and continuously, coming, which is a good situation, but there is something about the expectation of it being easy, right? And then aligning the expectation that there is, once that interest comes, that is the challenge. So I think the interest is there. It's about trying to manage the expectations, that it's not just, okay, we're even willing to pay a little bit more, but just give me, something that I can plug and play in my system. And we do see a change, right? We do see some further investments, more than ever before. That's true, but there's a lot more to gain, I think, with the mindset change as well, and kind of utilizing that interest that is there.
Yeah, so it takes quite a bit of a commitment from the brand owners also. It's not just, we would like to swap, let's do it. It takes, it makes more effort, and it's not an easy thing, but definitely something that should be supported. Yeah, I think if we look at brand owners, why do you guys think that they could be a key in addressing the sustainability on a global level? If we think about bigger brand owners, they have global distributions, they can have quite nice effect throughout, not just on a local level. But how do you see this being? That what kind of how can the brand owners be one of the main actors to support reaching carbon neutrality, as it is a global issue? Go ahead, Melissa.
Or Marco, I think he is also.
No, please go ahead, and I follow up then. Yeah.
Yeah, but of course they have such a strong right position, and also the ability to do things to the extent sort of that they want, right? So there should be this ability, even though they do work with scale, there should be this ability to try something locally, try something where it's regulated, which would probably be Europe, which is furthest ahead, and then roll it out throughout the world. So there should be some spillover effect, which we have seen, at least, for example, in recycling, where there's a lot of pledges for recycled content in Europe, but there is a spillover in the US, for example, coming. So I think they are probably, and the chemical tankers, as Dennis said, I mean, those are the global companies that should be able to do something. Try somewhere where there's an urgent drive also from the consumers, and then continue. And maybe we're going back to the local value chains that Torkil mentioned. So it's a bit split, like, will you have more local or more global? But I think they are still in the position to utilize that the best way possible. Marco.
Thanks. No, I think I see that every day. I go to the supermarket. I mean, some weeks ago, I used to buy a product which had a huge plastic packaging around it. And the next day you find it in a new, seems to be sustainable bio-based packaging paper, whatever it is. I don't know. It doesn't say on the packaging, but definitely you can see how the brand owner's ability to drive change there at that very supermarket concrete level can help. And if I look to some of our projects we have been funding, or which have received funding, I mean, also the advantages of what bio-based packaging versus fossil-based packaging, and beyond the usual benefits of using renewables and recyclables, but really functional benefits of how they can let through not ozone, how we call it in English, Sauerstoff. Who can help me? Oxygen, yeah. How they have new functionalities in terms of oxygen or durability or others compared to their fossil-based counterparts. So this is really where it could be win-win, let's say, for all parties in terms of additional functionalities, but also making an impact on the consumer side with better sustainability elements. So I think brand owners have a huge impact there, and the more important is it to have projects like this one here to further foster that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely true. I mean, the brand owners are the position that they are the closest to the consumers at the end. They are really in direct connection. They making interviews, making tests, presenting new products. Also can directly communicate bio-based ingredients and new functionalities to the customers. This is something that the chemical industry could not do. They don't get in touch with the consumer. It's just a business-to-business model. So this is really I think one of the most important aspects of this of the brand owner position here. We've seen that Henkel is as one of the biggest cosmetics and personal care producers in the world is one of our members in our network, and they just have launched a new bio-based surfactants for some of their products in some markets, and these bio-based surfactants have really concrete and precise advantages. They have a different mouth feel for toothpaste, for example. It's much softer and just much more nice feeling you have in your mouth. And this is something that they can directly communicate and market and bring into the market. And this is something that's I think of utmost importance and value for the whole industry. To have these showcases, have these examples where the people can directly experience what bio-based can give for an advantage. This is something that's I think that's really important.
Very well put. Go ahead, Melissa.
I just wanted to add on this because I totally agree that it's this marketing that makes a difference. And then I just wanted to say that, okay, not all the bio-based products will have other advantages than sustainability, but it is all about sustainability. So again, sitting on marketing gives you the advantage of being able to distinguish what are the functionalities you cannot compromise on, and what is it that actually is built in unnecessarily or is a habit, or, you know, and that they have the ability to change that or to influence that simply. So for me, it was always more interesting to see, okay, can we just, you know, factor in the sustainability, because these additional functionalities, they are amazing. I would always go for it and buy that as well. But it's essentially, it is about the sort of the world we live in and how environmentally friendly that solution is. And the industry is pretty conservative. So there's a lot of things built in that we don't really need somehow in terms of criteria for products. Okay.
Very good points. Yeah, I think the over-engineering approach is something that comes up quite a bit also in these topics. But Marco, please go ahead. You had
no, I think just
further.
one obvious example which came to my mind is how do you feed the people? I mean, is it from a plant protein or from an animal protein? And the whole discussion as insects as a protein source. I mean, this is where you need a brand owner to understand the consumer market to see if there's really a market demand here. I mean, in some other regions of the world, insects has been a known protein source for many years, but in Europe, insects as a protein source and putting that into a functional food ingredient, I think this is a new story, and that's where at least we see we need brand owners also in the projects to think a little bit from the end. What's the possible market uptake here? Yeah.
Yeah, very good points. We have actually a good question from the audience that could you give a few examples of big players in the chemical industry placing new bio-based solutions on the market? So maybe some products, materials that are generating more interest, what should they keep an eye on? So maybe if the advisory board members list a few ones from your perspective, and then we can kind of start moving on to the next topic to discuss. Dennis, please.
Yeah, as I said, bio-based surfactants is something that is coming to the market right now. So Evonik is marketing them together with Henkel, for example. We see precursors for different polymers, like bio-based aniline. This is coming to the market as a precursor for polyurethanes, as well as for polyamide 12. There's also a bio-based version coming up. This is a collaboration of Covestro together with Genomatica. So these are just some recent things that's coming to my mind. Marco probably has some more examples from the big view, I think.
Yeah, there's a whole list of over 100 projects I will share in a second with you in the link. I think we have the big players from the chemical sector in the projects. If you think about the BASF or Evonik or Clariant or others, you have also the smaller players. I mean, that goes from parts for the automobile industry where you need certain chemicals. Sometimes it's also not the chemical as such which is innovative, but the route how to produce that chemical, where you use certain residues and feedstocks which have never been used to manufacture a certain chemical. So it's not always only the end product which is important, it's also sometimes the feedstock or what is in between which makes it innovative for our side. But I will share the link, and then participants can also have a look by themselves if they like.
That sounds great. Melissa, do you want to still list a few?
I'm sure that the list from on the BPI process will cover everything. I mean, it's for anything, well, consumer products, but those, you know, that you see in supermarkets, to furniture, coatings, adhesives, all sorts of things. But you have some front runners. I mean, you hear the repetition. Okay, Covestro, Evonik, and maybe BASF. I mean, you know, there are some companies that are doing a little bit more than others, and then it's essentially the products.
Yes,
switch to bio-based. Yeah,
great. Do make sure to check out Marco's link. He posted it in the chat. Thank you for that. But maybe if we kind of conclude the climate neutrality discussion, which led to many of the other topics that we'll be covering still. But basically, the brand owners are coming in a lot with the sustainability angle to find alternatives, and by transitioning to bioeconomy, forming those bio-based value chains, we can together accelerate the climate change mitigation actions. I think that's one message that we want to bring forward. But if we jump to the next topic, we still have some time. We touched upon this, but the supply security, so fostering replacing the fossil-based feedstock. And the European Commission has outlined quite a bit into this supply security, that to maintain Europe's competitiveness, Europe will need to ensure sufficient supplies of raw materials, energy, and industrial products under conditions of decreasing the fossil carbon resources. And the geopolitical situations are, of course, intensifying this availability of the fossil resources, which will make most likely this transition to alternative resources even quicker, especially maybe in the energy side, but also with the raw materials and products created from this. The bio-waste has quite a bit of high potential, different side streams, waste streams, has high potential for added value products as they are underutilized feedstocks, a little bit like Marco was saying just now. But we are seeing rapid changes in the value chains due to the disruption of supply. And one of EU's target is also to increase the autonomy and improve the resilience of supply chains. But maybe if we take a quick tour regarding this untapped potential of bioeconomy and bio-based feedstock. Marco, you already mentioned different waste streams, side streams that are being processed into new products. What kind of availability or untapped potential do you see that there could be for the European bioeconomy?
I was quite surprised when we released a report together with Zero Waste Europe. I think it was now a year or 1.5 years ago, where we asked them what's the availability of bio waste. So this is the food waste when you have your your fruits and whatever you have in your household, and you put it in the bag. At least in Brussels you do it, and then you put it there and put it out of the street, and then it's being collected. And this is done in many, or probably all European states. So this kind of food waste, what's the availability in Europe? And I think it was something like 89 million tons around Europe where you have that bio-waste available. And then the question is, how much of that bio-waste is being collected? An example, and which is important for us or our members in industry, because we could use that bio-waste, or at least the organic fraction, to valorize it and turn it again into materials, products, etc., etc. So I think there is at the moment only 8 or 9% available. So you can see there is a big gap, a big potential for further lifting that availability of bio-waste. So yeah, definitely don't waste that opportunity, because we would be interested to use it. And of course, there's a lot of other things you need to look at, that how to increase recycle or collection rates, how to generate the infrastructure and logistics to process the waste, etc., etc. But as such, I think the waste side has a huge, bio-waste side has a huge potential.
Yes, that's definitely a good point, that it doesn't necessarily have to compete with, for example, food resources either. And then if we think about a little bit from the brand owner's perspective, how demanding can they be to the suppliers? Do they have to kind of lower their expectation to, for example, how many suppliers they can have? How committed or how involved do the brand owners need to become with the scaling up of solutions? Melissa, do you have a view on this?
Well, I would say very flexible because, I mean, again, you have this cascading that was mentioned. That means, again, you know, a new Verbund site. So a lot of interdependencies, a lot of technologies may be waiting for each other to be mature, to be able to utilize this waste. Let's say, let's focus on waste, because I do think there's a lot to tap into waste, but you know, there is something to close the gap between the availability and then technology maturity as well. So you need to be flexible. All those problems that were mentioned, like, okay, agreeing that you go maybe with a single supplier, at least temporarily, yeah, agreeing to maybe not not have the same volumes, which is in fact in their interest, because they also want to incorporate a new product slowly, but then they want to know that there will be large amounts available very quickly after, if it's a success. So it's a bit of a chicken. It comes down to the mindset.
Yeah.
But regarding feedstock, I just wanted to also mention CO2. Of course, let's say biogenic CO2, if we want to talk, and that is also available in abundance. And there's, I mean, capturing technology is rather mature. And utilization technologies are catching up. So there should be enough feedstock to really make a difference.
Yeah, maybe the research, development, and innovation side plays a key role here. And sometimes with the solutions, they're not as ready or as well available when you compare to the fossil-based side, where they've had a very long time to develop the facilities and production.
And maybe that talks about sort of our mindset within technology and innovation, where we also need to collaborate and talk more than we are used to. So, I mean, there is a sort of a change in mindset shift throughout the value chain, I guess.
Dennis, what kind of thoughts do you have?
Yeah, maybe two thoughts on that. I think we do need this mindset change from both perspectives. From the brand owner perspective, is they do have to take some risks. You do have to go with the first supplier, but it's only, you can be also a front runner. It's also a marketing thing if you take this risk. So you also get rewarded for that. But of course, you take a higher risk in the beginning, but that's normal with every new value chain, every new product. If you don't take the plunge, yeah, you just follow up. But on the other side, of course, we also have from the technical, from the innovation side, we have to look into this situation. They have to be aware of that in the first place, that of course supply stability and security is an issue and is needed, of course, and to look into processes that are feedstock flexible, for example. So to broaden the input streams that we have, especially when looking at wastes. Wastes are of totally high potential, of course, but of course there are some logistical problems with it. Usually with biomass itself, we have this logistical problems. You have a lot of water content. You don't have this one point source, massive amounts of material like the chemical industry is used to with an oil well, in the end. So we do have to see some change, and yeah, feedstock agnostic, feedstock flexible, more modular processes could be something to tackle this issue, of course. There are solutions, I think, and they are coming up more and more, and we have to be aware of that from the technical side as well. So this is, I think, both parties have to get in touch better and align more than they have done in the past.
Yeah, that's very well put. And I think the collaboration is something that we should quickly still touch upon, as we have a few minutes left before our panel discussion is ending. If we think about the collaboration across stakeholders, we see a lot of pledges, we see a lot of initiatives happening, for example, with recycling of plastics, but we might be missing it a little bit from the bio-based solutions side. What could be done? How can we bring the value chains together more efficiently? Should we initiate bigger pledges and initiatives together across the value chains in the bioeconomy side? Go ahead, Marco.
I think you can always do more pledges. It probably doesn't harm. But at the end of the day, I mean, policymakers, consumers, etc., also want to see a little bit the impact, I guess. And of course, always there could be more done. I mean, also, if you look at our sector, or if you think a little bit, what's the next thing in terms of digitalization, how to integrate renewable energy, to combine all that. But let's make sure we have also a good solid starting point. And I can see in our projects, and also with the forthcoming partnership, let's also make sure we do the groundwork right. We can already achieve a big impact there on economic sustainability, on sustainable, on social sustainability, and also environmental sustainability. There are still some hurdles. I think it's at the moment not so much the collaboration as such, because with the public-private partnership, I think we already have one tool. I mean, there are many others, but it's also about how to measure the impact, which is for our sector not always easy. If you look, for example, for carbon sequestration, and to make sure that you can measure that effect in a bio-based product over the value chain, I mean, this is not so easy. That's where other industry have a long-lasting advantage, because they're much more mature. They optimize their system for the last 40, 50, 60, 70 years. But to make a good LCA and all that for our sector, that's sometimes not so easy to get all the elements right. So I think collaboration is one thing, impact is another thing, and then measuring the impact is still another thing. I think we are a good track, but let's do our homework a little bit there before we come out with another pledge. Again, it will not harm, but yeah.
Thank you very much. Dennis and Melissa, do you have final words before we close up?
Yeah, maybe one thought on that. I think that the work that BIC is doing in this regard is of utmost importance to really have this community feeling. The bio-based industries, I think over the last year, this really developed, but we're still not there that we have a whole bioeconomy community. Even because bioeconomy is that complex, there are that many stakeholders, that many sectors that all have to be integrated and have to get a feeling of that we are all for one and one for all, kind of a way. This is really a challenge still, and that just needs time. I think we are in a good way. As I said, especially the public-private partnerships on the European level has done much on that, as well as have the regional networks and all these projects that are running, and to really have this sense of a community in the bio-based industries and bioeconomy. And if we do gain this feeling of a community, then we also can market it better, I think, and really communicate it better to the people out there that are not in this community still. This is really, I think, the issue we have to tackle. We are on a good way, but there's still some challenges in front of us there.
Very well put. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree basically with both Marco and Dennis. We've come a long way, and there were certain key, I think, developments and activities in Europe which did promote this coherence in the bio-based industry, but I mean, bioeconomy. But they also did point out to all the complexities that are ahead. In terms of impact, I totally agree with Marco. However, I think there is some education to be done also, so that the policy can, be provide for that the right way, right? Because there is a strong interdependency in that segment. And again, nothing without policy, probably no further pledges by brand owners, and probably still, careful what we can deliver.
Great. Thank you, everybody. We've run a little bit over time. Hope that our moderator is okay with that. But Hazel, maybe we come back to you, and a big thank you for Marco, Dennis, and Melissa for the discussion.
Just a last point. I think Marco copied the list to the list of projects only to hosts and panelists. At least that's
very
how
good
I
point.
see it. So maybe everyone should be able to see that. Yeah. Someone can just.
I'll send it to everybody. Thanks for pointing that out. Good.
Yeah, thank you. I will also include it in the follow-up email that you will receive afterwards. So don't worry about that. Thank you for your participation, for such an interesting panel discussion. I think you brought really good ideas and all about how these sectors perform in Europe and what we need to do and how we can do it. So as Anna already mentioned, yeah, we're running out of time. So I will go through this last part in a really quickly way. First of all, as you may remember, we are also asking you to answer some small questions. So I will just launch the second survey regarding the materials that you have seen throughout the 3 sessions that have been already presented. So here you have three questions related to the session number 2. The first one is whether you consider that the communication type tools are helpful to support your bio-based transition journey. Of course, no matter what your level is, it is just a general question. Then we have as the second one, if you consider the sustainability assessment tool to be helpful also to support this bio-based transition journey. And finally, we have which of the tools from our toolbox would you recommend to your colleagues or your business partners? You're already voting. I can see. I will just leave like 30 seconds more so we can go to the last voting session, if we can call it like that. And after that, we will not actually bring the floor to the last Q&A slot as we run out of time. But what we will do is share with you the questions and answers from our I will launch this third survey about the last session that you have just heard about. The first one is that if you agree that the Build Me, the value chain workshop, could support your company in finding solution providers for specific gaps in its bio-based value chain. This was the presentation given by Thorkill. And then we also asked you if you agree that tapping the mutualized network of European cluster organizations could bring added value on top of your company own scouting activities. And the final question is whether your company consider the uptake of the Build Me the Value Chain workshop tool. And of course, we want you to specify, like, if there is any specific type of solution provided that you would like to scout via this tool that we have already mentioned. So hope it's easy to answer them. I have already seen that most of you have answered. I will give a couple of seconds more so you have the opportunity to do it. While some of you are still voting, I ask you, if you have any other question or thing that you want to know, please drop it on the Q&A functions or Zoom or through the chat so we can properly answer them in the follow-up email. So this is also like the moment in case you want to tell us something. Okay, I think I will close up this this voting. Yeah. So now I think I will ask the speakers to turn on their cameras to close this first part of the final event. As I told you, the idea was that we have right now a Q&A slot, but due to time, we're not able to provide that. So if you want, Turkey, Emma, John, just turn on your camera so we can say goodbye to the attendees for this first spot. Thank you for all your presentations and for showing this great job that we have been developing in the past 2 years. As you have probably seen, there has been a lot of work that we have done. We have different tools, we have different researchers. We hope that you find all this information useful when trying to take this journey from fossil-based to bio-based. Of course, we will be here for you even after the event, so don't hesitate to drop us an email if you have any question, or if you want to know more about how to approach this journey, how you would take part of it and successfully know more about you. And this will be all for the first part of the session. We'll now have the lunch break, and at 1:30, 1:30, we will join again for the Train the Trainer workshop. So thank you all for joining, and see you in an hour. Thank you all the speakers also.
Thank you, everybody. And do keep those questions coming in. We can answer them afterwards. Thank you.
So now, as it is the time for the Train the Trainer workshop, Marta from CDA will be the one leading this second part of the session. So Marta, please go ahead.
So hello everybody, my name is Marta Macias from CTA, the Technological Corporation of Andalusia. I hope that you had some time to refresh during the lunch because we will continue now with the Train the Trainer workshop. So first of all, let's review some best practices that will help us to have a smooth workshop. Can you see my screen? Okay, so yeah. In the next slide, okay. In the next slide, please note that the session is being recorded. We will share the video on social media and also on the project website. Then please use the chat function to enter your questions. At the end of the workshop, we will have a question and answer session. So we will be dealing with them there. And please keep your cameras and microphones switched off unless you are presenting. So let's quickly review the agenda for the workshop today. So we will start with an overview of the training program that has been developed in the frame of the BIOSWITCH project. Then our colleague Hazel will present the self-assessment tool. And our colleague Tina from BTT will give you some information, specific details about the sustainability assessment tool that has been developed. By the end of the workshop, myself, I will be reviewing the Build Me the Value Chain tool that has been created, and we will finalize with the question and answer session and some wrap up. So let's go directly to the first part of the agenda, which is the review of the training program. And for this program that has been created by the project partners, the target audience are cluster managers, regional innovation agents, regional public agencies, anyone that could support brand owners in the BioSwitch journey in other regions of Europe. So the aim is to maximize the project impact by creating capacity in other regions. So more brand owners. You have seen during today that we have worked with 4 flagship brand owners, but the aim is to reach more brand owners so they can receive support and help in their BioSwitch transition. So this training program has the key elements that are listed there: a webinar providing information on how to use the BioSwitch toolbox. This information is also gathered in a guide on how to use the toolbox. We also conducted some sector-based webinars in order to provide additional information and to trigger some capacity building in this field. And finally, a roadmap on how to support brand owners when switching to bio-based. All these materials that are included in this training program has been converted to e-learning materials and therefore are available at the project website. So about the webinar, this is available at YouTube, and you can see there the main agenda. It's not a long webinar, so we strongly encourage you to have a look at it. So we did a brief welcome and introduction of the project. Then we explained the different levels and the self-assessment tool. This will be introduced today as well by my colleague Hazel, as I said before. Then we provided an overview of the toolbox, which are the different tools, the objectives, and so on. And then some details about the sustainability assessment tool. We will be enlarging this information today as well. And we finished that webinar with a question and answer and the wrap up of the session. About the guide, this is a PDF document and it's available at the project website. And in this document, you can find descriptions and explanations about each tool that is included in the toolbox. Moreover, it includes information about contacts for further support. So if you are trying to use the toolbox or supporting any brand owner in your region in using the toolbox and you have questions, please go directly to this document and check the contact information that is written there. About the sector-based webinars, we received feedback during the validation stage of the different tools, and it was decided to create a set of webinars. These were organized during February, and you can see there that we organized 4 different webinars covering different knowledge areas. These were plastics, textile, chemistry, and agri-food, and we delved into how bio-based approaches can be adopted in these areas. So the agenda for all the workshops was the same. We started with an introduction about the sector. Then we presented some case studies in that area. And then we provided some overview of relevant easy funded projects so they can serve as inspiration for others. All these webinars are available at YouTube. Moreover, I'm going into details about the roadmap on how to support brand owners when switching to bio-based. You can see there the main content of this roadmap. As I said before, this has been all converted to e-learning materials, but it's also a nice, perhaps long document that you can find on the project website. We will be reviewing that in a few minutes. So the main content there is, first of all, the motivation for the establishment of brand owners' action plans. Then some hints about redefining the value chain in the context of bio-based transition. We provide as well some steps and first recommendations for the mobilization of the brand owners inside clusters or regions, because this can get a little bit tricky sometimes. We also provide an overview about funding and financing possibilities so they can support brand owners' efforts when switching to bio-based approaches. We review some other aspects that can be relevant during this bio-based transition. And finally, we share some lessons learned during these 2 years of the project. About the first point in this roadmap, which is the motivation for the establishment of brand owners' action plans, you can find there some information about companies that are worried about meeting sustainability targets. So we delve into the sustainability development goals, and we provide some information about which of them, would be relevant for the BIOSWITCH journey. Moreover, we give some information about how to meet customer demand, and we include some results from the online discussions with the focus groups, and also through the survey that my colleague Emily Marsh was presenting earlier today. We review different EU policies and the legislative frameworks like direct regulation instruments, and we also provide some information about green public procurement, because there could be some interlinkages between green public procurement and also bio-based approaches. Also, we know that more and more consumers are demanding green products, so we include some information about green marketing and how brand owners could differentiate their brands by adopting or using bio-based products. And finally, in this part of the training program and the roadmap, we provide information about improved functionalities obtained from bio-based products, like benefits and improved features of this kind of products. So about redefining the value chain in the context of bio-based transition, we provide some ideas behind these new value chains, how this could be, how these new value chains could support the BIOSWITCH journey needs of the brand owners. Also, new value chains requiring new stakeholders to be involved. So we review which could be these key stakeholders to be considered. We provide a detailed description of the Build Me the Value Chain event as support from brand owners. We will be reviewing this today at the end of the workshop. And we provide an overview of open innovation as a tool for development of new value chains. You know that when you are doing a transition, it's nice if you can get involved with the rest of the innovation ecosystem in your region. So we provide also some examples of open innovation players in the bioeconomy field. So this can serve as a trigger and inspire others in order to adopt and use open innovation tools, which could be really useful in this scenario. Regarding the steps and first recommendations for the mobilization of the brand owners inside clusters or regions, as we said before, sometimes it can get really tricky to get brand owners or cluster members involved. So in the roadmap, you will find some ideas and suggestions for events that could trigger and boost the BIOSWITCH journey among the regional innovation ecosystems. So there we provide some suggestion for knowledge transfer events, so we can trigger exchange between the public and the private sector to exchange knowledge, to exchange achievements. Also, ideas about technical sectoral committee. This is a small meeting, let's say, where experts from the area provide insights about which are the key trends, which are going to be the next relevant things to be considered when developing R&D strategies. It's also interesting to think about organizing a demo day. You know that sometimes private sector trust more words coming from another private organization instead of someone from the academia or a policymaker. So in a demo day, the idea is to have visits to real plans from private organizations, companies, brand owners, and so on, so they can learn from each other, see which innovations are being carried out by even competitors and so. So you can trigger some innovations adoption by the private sector. Then it's also interesting to consider organizing a business opportunities and cross-sectoral value chains day. As we said before, it's nice to boost open innovation. It's nice to trigger and promote exchange between the different actors in the region. And finally, a financing and investment day, because this BIOSWITCH transition needs a lot of effort from the brand owner side. So it's always nice to let them know which are the funding possibilities that are available in the region. In fact, concerning funding and financing possibilities in this roadmap, you will find a review of the different funding sources available for this BIOSWITCH transition journey support. So there we have divided between public funding and private funding. And regarding public funding, it's worthwhile to highlight the EIC Accelerator program. And then you can find there 3 cascade funding approach-based projects. So these are mostly related to SMEs. And there you can find DGB Cube related to digital enterprise innovations for bioimaging, biosensing, and biobanking industries. Then it's also really interesting the Smart Agri Hubs service and also the community network, especially when you are looking for other collaborators and so. And then also the Meta Building project, which includes funding for nature-based solutions in industrial sectors, especially for SMEs. Of course, there is also AirStars, which promotes cooperation between different regions. And as I said before, then we have private financing. About other aspects that can be relevant during the bio-based transition, additional information is provided, for example, about certification and labeling of bio-based products. We review the different labels that are related to biomass, to relevant labels for bio-based plastics, other relevant labels that need to be considered by brand owners, also some information about natural cosmetics certification, and finally some environmental certification. In this part of the roadmap, we also review which would be the bio-based related standards. And we also provide some information and hints about designing and implementing effective instruments for stakeholder and public participation. Finally, also, we review how to increase public awareness and participation with bio-based products. So moving ahead, as I said before, in this roadmap, we also include lessons learned from these 2 years. So it's really important to customize stakeholder messages so we can properly catch their attention. It's relevant and it's important to highlight the added value of switching to bio-based approaches to convince brand owners of the potential that is there. So thanks to the bio-based readiness level assessment test, my colleague Hazel will explain it in a few minutes. This helps categorizing the different brand owners profile, and this will make easier to tailor the further communication actions and to know more about the brand owner, so we can suggest them the appropriate tools. Another key aspect that triggers a reaction from private companies, as I said before, is to learn from other private companies, as we were discussing when we were presenting you the demo day. So in this case, also the switching to bio-based Hall of Fame tool could be really interesting because it presents success cases from several brand owners, how their bio-based transition journey has been, which have been the challenges, how they solved these challenges, which is their situation now, which benefits they got after implementing bio-based approaches. So this could be really inspiring. And also you can see there are a set of tools like the how do I switch to bio-based, who can help me, the build me the value chain service, and the open innovation enabler. And these tools could be useful to support the new journey and find new collaborators. Moreover, for those brand owners that have started their journey, it could be interesting to measure, assess, and compare the different scenarios like fossil-based versus bio-based products or resources. So the sustainability assessment tool could be really helpful here in order to get information about which would be the impact of this potential change. Also, brand owners might need to get their own staff committed in order to successfully finalize the BIOSWITCH journey. So in this case, the tool We Are All Bio-Based could be used to create awareness among brand owners' own staff. In addition, brand owners could use the tools Consumers and Bio-Based Products, a love story, to know better about the consumer's point of view so they can better design not only the product, but also their marketing campaigns. And finally, the tool hashtag I am bio-based can be used because some hints are provided there on how to best communicate the novelty of these bio-based products to society. So this is a review of the BIOSWITCH training program. So next slot in the agenda is the self-assessment test. So this will be provided by my colleague Hazel. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so Hazel can start sharing the information. So Hazel, please feel free to go ahead.
Thank you, Marta. I will start sharing my screen now. I think you can all see it now, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so as Marta already told you, I'm going to present this bio-readiness levels definition. As you may remember, in the early morning, our colleague John Boss already presented some of the BIOSWITCH toolbox and the different materials that are available. So here I'm going to present actually like a step before reaching those materials, how you can identify which one of them to use according to your specific level. So I will start with these figures. These are basically the levels definition. You can basically see on the left side the different readiness levels that have been designed and identified as part of the project. And these are the levels from brand owners. And they go from the rookie level, which is basically the starting level, to the leaders quarter, meaning that the bio-based transition journey has already taken place and is already completed. The idea is that for each of these levels, you have some communication materials available and tools that you could use in the bio-based transition. As I told you before, our colleague Jean Boss already mentioned some of these materials. They include PDF, they include videos, they include also this kind of tests. And Marta has also already been talking about these materials also. Some of them are also available in the training program. So I'm going to go into more detail on each of these levels. So when we talk about the rookie level, this is basically for early stages of the bio-based transition journey. And here we position those brand owners who are not, basically, that might not even know that a bio-based change is possible, or that probably they know that it is possible, but they still need more information and more evidence to convince them in order to take a step forward and to join this bio-based transition. For this specific group, they are basically demanding these awareness and learning tools, which include We Are All Bio-based, Open Innovation Enable, and the set of the webinar series. Then we have the player level. This is for medium stages of the bio-based transition journey. In this case, the brand owners are already aware of the different benefits of switching from fossil-based to bio-based, but they still need some kind of a guidance on how to do it, how to implement them in their value chain, their feasibility, so they can convince themselves on the board of directors or investors to take that journey. And it's also important for them to help them to communicate properly to consumers how this change from fossil-based to bio-based will actually benefit them. So for this player level, we have the tools under the adoption tools. These are many more, and actually one of them, the value chain service, will be later explained also by Marta. Then we have on the top the most experienced level and the leading quarter. For the most experienced level, we're basically talking about advanced stages of the bio-based transition journey. So in this specific situation, brand owners have already implemented some bio-based approaches, but still need some guidance on how to raise awareness, basically among their staff, or how they can develop and improve the needed value change and on the benefits that being bio-based has. And in this case, this group is demanding the so-called consolidation tools, which are basically those three: Relevant bio-based, Open Innovation Enable, and the BIOSWITCH glossary. And then the last lever is the leading quarter. In this case, the bio-based transition journey is successfully completed. It has already taken place. So these brand owners have completed this transition, and they are invited actually to join the value chain stakeholders group and share their experiences. So these are basically the different levels. Even if, of course, if we have already identified specific tools for each of the levels, the idea is that you can access all the materials no matter what your level is. And of course, all of them are available on our project website. So how could we determine actually this level? We have a test for that also available on our website, and we have like defined 5 main questions that help us to understand what your level is regarding the bio-based transition. With this test, we do some kind of a mix between a qualitative and a quantitative analysis, so we can see the big and real picture and identify your level of how we can help you. So it's basically we go one by one, trying to define the level. So having a look basically at the different questions in a brief way. The first questions relates to your corporate strategy and how you're implementing these bio-based approaches as part of it. As you may see, there are already 4 options for you to choose from. And the second question wants to know more about the increasing the share of use of the bio-based components in the feedstocks that you're actually using already for your products or for your packaging. Here you have many more options, because as I told you, it also includes a qualitative analysis. So it's really important for us to have a good understanding or where you are in this transition journey. The third question, we ask you to let us know if you have already switched from fossil-based to bio-based in your products and packaging. And if you have already switched, you can tell us specifically how you have done so. In these 4 questions, we ask you about the share of bio-based ingredients in your products. And the last one is basically the same, but it's more focused about packaging. So what we do with all these answers is to obtain, of course, the results of your level, and we indicate you which is your level and which kind of materials you can access. So when you take the test, you will receive an email. We indicate your level. We include you the link to the BIOSWITCH toolbox and all the communication materials that are useful for your specific level. We also invite you to subscribe to the BIOSWITCH newsletter and an invitation to follow us on social media. It's basically a personalized email in which we encourage you to have a look at the different materials that we have created for you. And of course, if you need any other advice or guidance in this journey, apart from the materials that we have developed or the different videos that we have already recorded, etc., don't forget that we are actually here for you. So feel free to reach us out. Yeah, I think that's all from my side. So I get back to you, Marta.
Okay, thank you, Hazel. So next slot in the agenda is the presentation of the BIOSWITCH Sustainability Assessment Tool. This will be performed by my colleague Tina from BTT. So Tina, welcome, and please feel free to start sharing your screen.
Thank you. Just a second. To share. Do you see testing?
Okay. We can see it. And now it's full screen. Okay.
Thank you. Yes, so my name is Tiina Vainiokaila. I'm working at VTT in Finland. We worked with the environmental issues with modeling and calculation and using the tool. And I thought that I'll do just a short trip to the world of LCA and the indicators so we know what we are talking about. Mostly we talk about carbon footprint. That's the most common. Can also be called global warming potential. Probably has other names too, but CO2 equivalent. And here's a picture trying to explain what is equivalent. CO2 emissions include usually also those that have the same effect, warming our globe. And then they are the amount of them are multiplied by the factor how much they do the effect compared with the carbon dioxide. So here the biggest ball here is methane, and that's not the biggest, but I couldn't get the bigger balls in this picture. So the middle one is chloroform, and this would be carbon dioxide. So 1 kilo of each, if they go to air, that's how much they have the effect. We do have many other indicators too, and actually our tool supports all of them if we have the right inputs into the tool. I have some examples like acidification, eutrophication, and one of my favorites is ozone depletion potential. I'm sure some are probably too young to remember, but I remember when I was younger, maybe even a child, that was the big thing, that our ozone layer is having a hole in it, and that creates a big risks of getting skin cancer. And something was done, that there was some actions taken, and that was fixed. It's growing back to normal, and this is not what worries us anymore. And I really hope that we do the right actions, that our children will remember. Like, oh, when I was a child, then there was this global warming problem. They will have other problems then, but let's hope that they are something else and this will be okay. Our tool, sustainability assessment tool, or even network LCA, as we sometimes call it, it can be found through the link in the BIOSWITCH pages. And there is a model that which you can go try yourself. And it's freely usable there. You can change some, I will show you later, but you can change some numbers and test it, and you don't have to worry, you can't break anything because everything goes back to normal once you sign out. And if you are interested in getting your own process like really modeled, you are welcome, of course, to contact us. We made models for all major brand owners that they could use in this tool. And after getting feedback and looking at them together with them, then we made some modifications in order to make it more useful for the brand owners. We had some packaging solutions, and then we even had like possible product development ideas by changing materials to exactly even the same material but bio-based origin, or also a case where we tried to avoid the waste creation. Some of the models were cradle to gate and some cradle to grave. There was a question earlier about the end of life. We didn't go very deep into that, but obviously that's part of it too. To be able to use the sustainability assessment tool, you have to have a model first. So I actually added here a picture of a model. This is what a Sulka model, or I think very, very close to how all other tools also would make the models, how the LCA studies are usually made. And this is it's a real process without any names there. And here on the left-hand side, you can see all the materials and energy, all the inputs. Then there are some processes, something happens, and then there are waste created during the processes already, which are calculated in. All the transports are taken in, and then here's the retailer, seller use, and then there's the demolition and the waste treatment, everything included. But we don't have this kind of model because I had to make something that is freely available and not showing anybody's sensitive data. But I'll show you how it works. Do you see, oh, sorry. Do you see the network LCA tool now?
Yes, yes. Yeah.
I'm not sure ever when you're sharing the screen what happens. Okay, this is what you see when you come in first. So it's a very engineered tool. We are not artists at VTT, at least most of us aren't. So you start from top and then you continue in right order. So you select the project, you can find the BIOSWITCH project here. And then there's these 3 tabs. First is data collection, but this is not relevant for testing this tool. Here you can find the LCA models. And from here you can choose the test model, BIOSWITCH test model. Then you go to the next one. And let's look at the paper package. And here you initialize. And unfortunately, you have to do that again to get it properly here. Now, I showed you the model. This is very simple. And this is not a real process. So there's recycled paper and paper that go into a process and you make a package by using some electricity. That's all that's included in this model. And also, it's important to notice that these are also not like real data sets, to also avoid showing something that we should not be showing. But what you can do here is go to this main process, and you can look at the amounts here. The factor column is where you can operate. So this process includes, what is it, 10 grams of paper, 1 kilowatt hour. It's very energy consumption process. Then there are some little bit paper included, and out you get 1 paper package. Now, if you decide that, okay, my process is not so energy intensive, you can look here first so that, we have less numbers here, primary cost. So let's look at this, this line where the numbers are. And because our processes only include the carbon footprint, then we go to the climate change. This is the amount we create, the CO2 equivalent per 1 cup. Now, if you want to change, you can go here, say, let's make our process more effective. And it is 0.1 kilowatt hour. And then you do calculate here again. And you can see that your climate change effect, of course, decreased very much. And this is the whole point with this, that you can actually go to your model, you can test which parts, which changes, how much you could affect the process, and which would be the most effective way of making your process more environmental friendly. Let's put this back, and I'll show you also. We can take a quick look of the general packaging, which is very similar, but there's oriented polypropylene and PET going into the process besides the electricity. Of course, they are imaginary comparisons. You should always compare things that are really comparable. That if your products needs a package with these plastics, it's maybe not okay to only wrap it in paper. And also during this project, we found out that there isn't too much data available on bio-based materials. It's actually very little, and you have to really go deep into the topic to find the proper processes which you can use, because at least Gabia and EcoInvent databases, they didn't give you very much choices. At least last autumn, maybe, I hope they have improved that. So some data would be good to have more. Let's just take a quick look of the comparison, because this is the idea. Here you can also, of course, you keep this model, and here you can select the flow sheets. You could have more choices, well, but we of course have now these two. And then we make the calculations. And again, don't pay any attention on the acidification or any ecotoxicity. We have to only look at the climate change number here. And here you can see general packaging, which would be the plastics, and paper package, which is almost as big. And this is because we have so much energy included in this project. Yes. And like I said, this is free to use. You have to sign in. You have to create an account to go there and look. And one of the great things about this tool is that we could actually make a big process here for the producer of the material, and then have other account for the people putting the insides of their product into this package, and everybody could just get access to only their own part, which is kind of cool. Then you could like cooperate, and you could still not see the maybe sensitive data of the other companies. That was all. Thank you for allowing me to present.
Thank you, Tina, for your presentation and the nice example of the software and so on and how it works. So we will go now for the last presentation in today's agenda, and at the end we will be reviewing the questions and that are in the chat. So I'm going to share my screen now so we can finalize with this last presentation. I'm going through screen. Okay, so let's review together the Build Me the Value Chain tool that has been developed and validated in the frame of the project. In the next slide, you can see the first question that we did ourselves when we're developing the tool. So why a tool to support and promote new value chains building? So as we have been discussing today, the transition to bio-based approaches require new travel mates, let's call it that way, and therefore brand owners need to redefine or define, starting from scratch, their value chains. This means involving organizations able to provide inputs like resources or knowledge that they need for their BioSwitch journey. And sometimes the knowledge or the resources needed are really, really specific, especially when we are talking about, cutting edge technologies and approaches. So it's difficult for the brand owners to find suitable partners. So within the BioSwitch toolbox, we included this Build Me the Value Chain service. about what is offered or how this Build Me the Value Chain service, how it is shaped, let's say. So the objective is to organize a workshop where the brand owner and its needs and challenges are the focal point. And the main aim is to involve bio-based industries, so new connections and business opportunities can be identified with the aim of building new value chains that they require, that the transition to bio-based approaches might require. So about the different objectives, you can find it there. First one is to help the brand owner in the development of the new supply or new value chain for this BIOSWITCH journey. Also to identify possible projects between the brand owner and other stakeholders in the field of innovation, and then to promote their application to perhaps some funding programs, and to disseminate and communicate the strategy and the innovation aspects of the organization, of the brand owner, with the purpose of gaining notoriety and positioning at local, regional, or EU level. About how is it done, there you can see the methodology that we have followed during the project. We shaped this service tool and we validated with the 4 flagship brand owners. So it all started with a kickoff. This is a meeting between the cluster partner and the brand owner. And the aim is to identify which are the brand owner needs and challenges that will be later presented during the workshop or that will be addressed through the workshop. During the preparation stage, the cluster partners identify which would be the most suitable attendees. This means organizations that would be able to answer the needs or the challenges from the brand owner, and some invitations are sent. Also, some communication actions are carried out, like dissemination of the event, if it's going to be open to the public or if it's going to be only to the attendees, some interaction with them in order to know their availability and so. Then during the event organization, we also promote some networking and we organize some kind of interaction between the attendees and the brand owners, and we also conduct bilateral meetings. We will explain there in a few minutes, which is the meaning of these bilateral meetings. And finally, it's really, really important, and we have proof during the validation stage how useful this is to conduct some follow-up from the cluster partner side. This means that once the event has finished and maybe 2 weeks after the event, it's nice to have some interaction with the brand owner to see if these bilateral meetings were okay, if there have been further contact between the brand owners and the attendees, and to try to, support the brand owner and to trigger further development of these new potential value chains and connections. So regarding the event configuration, the workshop can be done face-to-face or online. In the case of the project, initially, these 4 events were scheduled as a face-to-face event. Then you know that the situation changed and it was not possible to organize them face-to-face in some parts of Europe. So for the 4 workshops, 3 of them were done online and 1 was done as a face-to-face. So there is flexibility there. We can accommodate to the brand owner needs and also to the context situation. So if done face-to-face, it's nice to include some welcome coffee before the event or a cocktail or whatever, so we can trigger networking and we can create new connections. The idea is that the brand owners can interact with the rest of the attendees to the event and in order to promote and build the regional innovation ecosystem. So usually the event is done on a petite committee style. The idea is to create a trustworthy environment. This will also depend on the needs and the challenges of the brand owner, because sometimes they will be very specific. So the number of attendees will be really small. And this doesn't mean that the event is not successful, because here we measure success in terms of the number of new connections that are being done, not in the number of attendees. And sometimes the challenges will be broader, so the audience could be larger. So it could be flexible again. Regarding the agenda, this will include the presentation of the brand owner R&D strategy and the different challenges that the brand owner is facing through the BIOSWITCH journey. And the idea is to find among the audience organizations with the know-how and the capacity to provide the resources needed. Going ahead about the event configuration, in order to trigger real connections between the brand owner and the attendees, like potential suppliers, partners for European projects, or whatever, a set of bilateral meetings is scheduled at the end of the event. These bilateral meetings are going to be carried out between one representative from the brand owner and the attendee. Of course, the cluster partner can offer their help and support and be present in the meeting if needed, but as a rule of thumb, it's just between the brand owner and the attendee. And these bilateral meetings would be requested by the attendees when registering at the event. You know that sometimes when you say that you are organizing an event where the brand owner is the focus of the event, a lot of organizations try to attend to the event because it's a nice, market opportunity, let's say, or business opportunity. But the idea is to provide value to the brand owner. So this is why we ask attendees to request the bilateral meeting and to provide information about their motivation, which would be the value added for the brand owner, and any other information of interest, so we can see that the attendee is going to provide real value to the brand owner, and that there is a match between the brand owner needs and challenges and what the attendee can offer. This will ensure that you are conducting a successful Build Me the Value Chain event. And concerning the attendees profile, the desirable one would be private sector organizations. For example, bioproducts providers, auxiliary equipment, waste management companies. Of course, this has to be tailored and customized according to the needs of the brand owner. So this is why it's really, really important to have a nice kickoff meeting where you as a cluster partner or a regional innovation agent can really understand which is the brand owner situation regarding their BioSwitch journey and which are their needs, which kind of partner they need in this new value chain, or if they are thinking about a new project for R&D, for example, like the BBI and now CBE, Circular Bio-Based Europe funded projects. So you can think about which would be the best ones attendees in order to fulfill their needs and challenges. Here you can find an example of the agenda for this event. As I said before, this is really, really flexible and it can be easily adapted. So if done face-to-face, you would start with a coffee or cocktail networking. Alternatively, if done online, you would be starting with some attendees connection. Then the cluster partner will provide some welcome and context about the aim of the event. And then the floor will be given to the brand owner. So the idea is that they can present which is their innovation and bio-based transition activity, and also that they could present which are the challenges and which are their needs. This is not a long event, so it's better to have like a 1 hour event or so, and then to allocate enough time to the bilateral meetings, because this is where the real connections would be happening. So after the event, there will be these bilateral meetings between the brand owner representative and the attendees. Of course, this has to be agreed with the brand owner, but from our experience, a nice timing for these bilateral meetings is around 15 minutes each. So regarding BioSwitch and our experience with the organization of this kind of event, as I said before, we organized 4 events involving the 4 flagship brand owners, Alpro, Facer, Nopa Nordic, and Grupo La Caña. There you can see some screenshots from the event with Alpro, organized by our colleagues from Flanders Food. And there you can see some lessons learned that we can summarize after organizing these events. So first of all, strong communication with the brand owner is a key aspect. As I said before, it's not a waste of time to spend some time discussing with the brand owner in this kickoff meeting, even if you have to do a follow-up meeting in order to really understand the challenges, the needs, which are the gaps that they find in their value chain, etc. Also, finding the right attendees is really, really important for a successful event. It's recommended to look for the right profile in sectorial events, cluster networks, and so on. You also have the European Cluster Collaboration Platform, where you can look for clusters and for companies that are members of these clusters. And also, when the brand owner presents several challenges from different areas, it's better if the managers from those areas participate and present them, and also they participate in the B2B meetings, because this way they can be really in contact with the attendees and share in a better way which are their challenges. And finally, in order to ensure successful connections, it's recommended that the cluster partner does some follow-up for the B2B meetings, asking the brand owner about the evolution of the connections established. So for example, in our case, we do some follow-up and we saw that one of the attendees was a nice connection for our flagship brand owner, and they have like similar challenges, and we support them in finding which was the most suitable funding program for there in order to continue exploring which could be the solution for these joint or common challenges, let's say. So this is why it's really, really important to follow up and not finalize the contact with the brand owner once the event has finished. So this was all about the Build Me the Value Chain service. The cluster partners from the BIOSWITCH project will be offering this as a service for other brand owners, not only in their own regions, but in other regions of Europe. So please feel free to reach us if you think that this could be interesting for you. And then let's go directly to the question and answer session. So I'm going to have a look at the chat. So there is some congratulations to Tina because of a nice presentation that you have made regarding the sustainability assessment tool. So I don't know if any of you have some questions or any doubt or comment that you want to share over the chat or over the question and answer function or application from Zoom. Okay. So then I think that this is the final time or the end of our workshop. So thank you everybody for being here, not only on the Train the Trainer workshop, but also during the day with the final event of the BIOSWITCH project. We will be sending you information about the event. The recording will be uploaded in YouTube. And I don't know if my colleague Hazel wants to share anything else, or otherwise we can just finalize the meeting.
Yeah, no, just to remind to thank you again for participating. We know that this has been a really busy morning on part of the afternoon. So don't worry if you have any other questions that you couldn't just ask at this moment, or maybe when you see the final presentations, you would also identify new questions or new things that you want to know more. Don't worry about that, as we will share with you a follow-up email. There you will find all the presentations used, the recording. You also will have our contact email. So in case you want to reach out to us, you can do it. Yeah, thank you again. Thank you to all the presenters, and we hope you enjoy the event.
Okay, so thank you everybody and have a nice day then. Bye.